A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
Hello, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. Out again this week is Adam Keller, my typical co-host, but we have in studio helping me out, thankfully, Ben Job. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey, y'all.
We're broadcasting live online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Today, we've got on President of the American Federation of Government Employees, Reverend Everett Kelley from Alabama. We're going to be updating you on the UAW strike. We've got an interview about Medicaid expansion here in Alabama and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number and the line is open. You can call 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a voicemail throughout the week or send a text message if you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, then you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, tvlr.fm, but we are also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all of those places. Just search the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to make a one-time or monthly recurring contribution, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or become a patron at patreon.com/the Valley Labor Report. You can also buy our merch on tvlr.fm/store, and
new
our
shirts, yo.
New shirts are in. I'm going to be mailing these out to people that pre-ordered them this week. We've got about like 25 extra that we bought, so you can go and get those now as well. tvlr.fm/store. If you're a member of a union, then please do think about getting your local to sponsor the show as well.
And let me be the one to add the disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their authors and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. Thanks for joining us, whether you're on FM, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, YouTube, Facebook, or Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio. Very cool, another internet radio station out of Huntsville, Alabama, bringing the good content from Huntsville to the world. Or if you're listening on podcast, of course, thank you for joining us as always. And go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump right into our first segment, Last Week in Southern Labor. Last Week in Southern Labor is a segment that we do every week where we talk about what happened in the labor movement in the southern United States and her colonies. We do this because there's a lot of cool stuff that happens all the time, every week. Workers are always on the move, and we don't get enough love for it. Not enough people talk about what workers are up to. We're filing for union election. We're winning union election. We're winning gains after strikes, during bargainings. We are passing policy, and policy is being passed to hurt us. So, we got to keep track of all of that. So let's go ahead and jump into what happened in the southern United States and her colonies on the week ending on 6 October. In new election filings, the employer filed for a union election after 5 workers at Union Oil and Gas in Charleston, West Virginia, showed majority support for unionization with United Steelworkers International Union, USW. The National Right to Work Foundation filed a decertification petition on behalf of anti-union workers at Starbucks in Nichols Hill, Oklahoma, seeking to end the representation of 27 workers there by Starbucks Workers United. The employer filed for a union election after 2 workers at TV Oil and Gas in Winfield, West Virginia, showed majority support for unionization with the USW. 19 workers at Starbucks in Midwest City, Oklahoma, filed for a union election with Starbucks Workers United, as did 20 Starbucks workers in Houston, Texas. 19 workers at Rising for Justice in Washington, D.C. filed for a union election with the Washington-Baltimore News Guild, Local 32035. 40 workers at Rainbow Blossom Market in Louisville, Kentucky, filed for a union election with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, UFCW, Local 227. The employer filed for a union election after 104 workers at Overseas Shipping Group in Tampa, Florida, showed majority support for unionization with the International Organization of Masters, Mates, and Pilots. The Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 32BJ, filed a petition to amend the certification of their unit at Clean Team Janitorial Services in Washington, D.C., meaning they are either wanting to add or subtract from their bargaining unit, but I'm not sure which. Anti-union employees at Fiat Products in Somerset, Kentucky filed a decertification petition to end the representation of the 26 employees there by the Teamsters, Local 651. Meanwhile, 24 workers at Durham School Services in Memphis, Tennessee filed for a union election with the Teamsters, Local 667. 100 workers at KDXH Media in St. Louis, Missouri withdrew their petition for a union election with the Independent League of Associate Members of KDXH. A decertification petition was pulled at Missouri Red Quarries in Ironton, Missouri, so the Laborers International Union of North America, Missouri and Kansas Laborers Council will continue to represent the 7 employees there. 121 workers at Unity Healthcare in Washington, D.C. withdrew their petition for a union election with the Union of American Physicians and Dentists, but shortly after filed another petition for a union election, but with a smaller unit of 50 instead of 121. The NLRB threw out a decertification petition by anti-union workers at Starbucks in Tallahassee, Florida, so the 25 workers there will remain a part of Starbucks Workers United. The last week was slim on election results. There were 5 workers at Trident Military Services in Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, voted in favor of unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAMAW, 4-1. And 86 workers at Corsair Memory in Duluth, Georgia, a video games manufacturer, voted against unionization with the Teamsters, Local 728, 32-46. In settlements, grievances, and unfair labor practices, a federal court in Seattle has ruled that the Starbucks Corporation must comply with the U.S. Department of Labor administrative subpoena that seeks documents needed in an investigation by the department's Office of Labor Management Standards into money spent by the company related to worker organizing campaigns. The court has given the company 14 days to provide the documents. In updates on strikes and bargaining, the American Prospect reported on more changes to the pay of rural letter carriers, with this change to the pay structure seeming to be snapping back some of the major pay cuts that happened a month or two ago. One carrier told the Prospect that with the implementation of the REX system, he originally lost $15,000 a year, and he got back $6,000 of that with this most recent update. Firefighters with the International Association of Firefighters Local 87 in Jackson, Mississippi, won an $8,000 to $10,000 raise, depending on their rank, after more than 2 decades without a significant wage increase, according to the local president. Atlanta Public Schools announced a $1,000 bonus for district custodians last week, and after a 6-day strike by sanitation workers, just sanitation workers in Durham, North Carolina, members of UE Local 150, they won $6.5 million in bonuses to all city workers, not just sanitation workers. The union was asking for a $5,000 bonus for all city workers, but the city only gave that to workers making only $42,800 per year, decreasing the amount the more income that you made in the last year. And so the union is counting this as a victory, but will continue to fight to make sure that everybody gets that $5,000 check. The Alabama Board of Nursing, and this is a crazy story, the Alabama Board of Nursing projects that 39,000 experienced nurses will leave the profession in the next year in the next 5 years just in Alabama. They estimate that this would double the amount of nurse vacancies to 14,000 from the current 7,000. It's not going to increase it by 40,000 because, you got people leaving, you got people coming in, but the total vacancies are going to double from 7,000 to 14,000 by 2027, according to their estimates. Alabama nurses are paid the second lowest median salary in the country. Of Alabama's 84,000 nurses, almost 60,000 of them, 75%, have a second job.
Yep.
And 37,000 of those spend at least 32 hours at the second job.
Brutal.
That's insane. I had no idea it was that bad. 4,000 UAW members in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Maryland have a tentative agreement with Mack Trucks. The union says more details will come out as members begin the ratification process. 188 UAW members at ZF Manufacturing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a Mercedes parts manufacturer, are still on strike, as are Shangri-La dispensary workers with the UFCW Local 655 in Columbia, Missouri. They began striking in May. Three Brothers coffee workers with UFCW Local 1995 are on strike in Nashville, Tennessee. They have been since June, as have Memphis soy protein production workers with the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union Local 390G at International Fragrances and Flavors over in Memphis. In policy, politics, and legislation, Florida became the 16th state in 2 years to propose weakening child labor laws, with lawmakers there proposing to eliminate all guidelines on hours that 16 and 17-year-olds can work, meaning that employers could schedule them for any amount of hours they want at any time, including during the night, during school, if this became law. Insane. The Speaker of Alabama's House of Representatives is convening a committee of lawmakers to study Alabama's low labor force participation rate, reportedly with solutions being considered like extending child care, higher wages, addressing housing concerns, and providing more expansive mental health services. But this is coming from a Republican, so color me skeptical. But if anything like that comes from this, it'll be a big win. 22,000 Alabamians lost Medicaid in June due to the ending of a federal COVID emergency, and the Alabama Medicaid Agency last week told news outlets that the total number was 100,000 since the emergency ended.
Jeez.
100,000 Alabamians don't have health care anymore. They've been kicked off of Medicaid. So presumably that's great for our state economy and the labor force participation rate. Just wild. Absolutely insane. But yeah, that's it for Last Week in Southern Labor. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll be right back with AFGE National President Reverend Everett Kelley. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Well, to go to labor, and you're listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host today is Ben Job. Adam Keller is once again out of pocket. If you have anything to add, you can give us a call or send us a text message at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also watch us on YouTube and participate in the chat. We appreciate everybody listening. Bob says hi. Vonda says solidarity, friends. Alex says good morning. Jacob Jones says, I feel like I'm saying that I, Jacob Morrison, am saying Alabamians a lot, and I take credit for that. No, I've always said Alabamians. What are you talking about? Jared says Alabamers. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you listening. So, like I said, we have got Reverend Everett Kelley on the line. We appreciate his time. The American Federation of Government Employees is the largest union of federal workers in the United States, representing now 750,000 federal workers. And the president of AFGE is a preacher from Anniston, Alabama, who came out of the Anniston Army Depot. And Reverend Everett Kelley is the next guest on our program. Brother, welcome back to the show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you, Jacob.
Yes, good to see you too. So, you know, I wanted to talk to you about some of the attacks on the federal workforce that we've been seeing over the last few weeks, the last couple of months. And this is kind of related, but I wanted to revisit some of this stuff about the shutdown for a moment. Because I saw, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, AFGE on Twitter was talking about the impact that just the potential of a shutdown has on federal workers, but also federal agencies. And one stat that really stuck out to me was the president of the AFGE local representing Social Security workers. She estimated that 21 21,000 man hours were wasted just at the Social Security Administration, preparing for a shutdown, figuring out who was going to be furloughed, who was an essential employee, how are we going to do this, and what's going to happen in the event of a shutdown. 21,000 man hours. Federal workers in the Forestry Service talked about wasted time, talked about worrying about not being able to properly prepare for a fire, all of this kind of stuff. And you know as well as I do and the listeners that the folks responsible for this shutdown, they're the ones theoretically always talking about waste. That they care about, they think the government is so wasteful, and yet they caused 21,000 man hours. That is like 10 years of labor that was wasted for no reason, didn't have to happen. Can you talk to us about some of what that means for the workers involved, for the agencies involved, for their ability to serve the public?
Well, Jacob, that is a very good question. Let me say that, Social Security, if they are wasting 21,000 man hours, while they are a large agency, they represent probably about 40,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
When you start taking into consideration other agencies that wasted insurmountable number of hours as well, you're talking about a vast number of wasted hours that we could be using servicing the citizens of the United States of America. Social Security represented, like I said, about 40,000. TSA represented about 42,000. The VA represents about, almost 280,000. So when you start taking into consideration all of these hours that were wasted preparing for a shutdown or potential shutdown, it's insurmountable and it doesn't make sense. It's uncalled for. Matter of fact, it's downright ridiculous, to have to waste this amount of hours that we could be servicing the American public.
Right, absolutely. And then, the mental toll on, these employees. Am I going to have a paycheck or not? Am I going to, that takes a really big toll just in and of itself. And there's a law. My understanding is that there's a law that says federal employees in the event of a shutdown, we have to be given back pay. But that doesn't help if we're out of work for a month and my rent comes due, right? That month, the bank wants the money. And so that's, but there are some people, like federal contractors, that often don't get back pay. And that's just a huge, huge issue.
It is. Jacob, let me say this, although, and I really appreciate LGE for going to bat after the last shutdown to make sure that eventually, federal employees will get back pay. But we, just like the average American, many of us live from paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. The average debt in a household is about $600. And when you start talking about not getting a paycheck, that means that house note got to come from somewhere. Right. That means that groceries have to come from somewhere. The public transit, if you're in the metropolitan cities, have to come from somewhere. Okay, so that means that the credit card is the next viable option. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in essence, what happens in the event, in many cases, I'm saying, is that a member that I represent will be forced to take out a loan at 28% to 26 to 28% using a credit card, when, it's all because of political rhetoric, so I think that it's unfair. Eventually we get a paycheck, but that long-term effect of that 26% loan that I just took out for food and gas and, house note, will be with me for 3 and 4 and 5 years. Some members are still paying interest and payments on the last loan they took from 2019.
Right. Yeah. And so we were able to avert a shutdown this time, but it was only for like 47, 48 days. And so that is quickly approaching. And now there's no Speaker of the House. So how, what are your thoughts about the ability to keep the government open at the next deadline? Or how have your conversations with representatives in DC been going about this?
Well, I think that because of the loss of the speaker, it puts us in a precarious situation. I'm hopeful that the Republican Party will get a speaker and get a speaker that's reasonable, that's willing to put people before politics. And if we do that, then I still remain hopeful that we end up with a funding deal. But it's contingent upon the GOP being able to come together, select a speaker, and select a speaker that's willing to work for America. That's what it's all dependent upon, Jacob.
Finding a reasonable Republican. We'll see what happens there from your lips to God's ears. So let's talk a little bit more about some of these Republicans. People are there's a bunch of these folks running for president, and most of these folks, they're never really going to be president. And so you might, so a listener might ask, why would you take the time to respond to them? Because their ideas are not isolated to them, right? Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis, there are a lot of people that share these ideas. And so talking about Ramaswamy first, he has said he wants to cut 75% of federal jobs and eliminate agencies, including the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I mean, there's like all this culture war stuff about the Department of Education. And so, obviously we need the Department of Education, but I can't even understand what is the reason for wanting to eliminate the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Jacob, that's a typical example of somebody that don't understand politics, right? And don't understand how America works. To think in terms of cutting 90% of the agencies, you're talking about cutting Social Security, right? If we think that these agencies are underfunded right now, especially the Social Security Administration, underfunded. And to talk about cutting 90%, it's insane to even think and phantom that type of idea. Because the American public depends on these services that we render every single day. Can you imagine not having someone at Social Security to take care of your claim when you need to file a new claim? Or someone at the Veterans Administration when the veteran go off to war and come back and there's nobody there to service that veteran? And the list goes on and on and on. So it's a typical example of someone not understanding how America works and not understanding American politics.
And on top of that, you've got it's obviously going to be detrimental to have fewer people being able to process Social Security stuff. The IRS, it's already difficult to get a hold of a person at the IRS. And so it's going to make that much more difficult. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, I saw that when I was preparing for, this conversation today. And I didn't even realize that until yesterday, that he wants to abolish the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. There's like a reason for that kind of stuff. But on top of that, the federal government employs, millions of workers, millions of Americans. And if you're talking about 75% cut, you're talking about like 1.5 million jobs. That's a recession. There's no other way around that. You're going to plunge the United States and then subsequently the globe into probably an unprecedented recession. A million job losses. How often does that happen?
And the thing about it, Jacob, is that when you consider the amount of employees, direct employees in America today, federal employees, it's the same amount when I believe it was Truman was in office. So, what we need to do is consider how we staff American workers so that America can get the services that it needs and not understaffed as this person has indicated. It just doesn't make sense. Again, now I don't know if you're going to ask me a question about others that's running for president or not, but I want to go on record and say that these guys are just, I mean, it's sickening to hear some of the comments, such as, I think that, I'm going to, on the first day, start slitting the throats of federal bureaucrats, federal employees. I mean, to me, that's threatening, and federal employees shouldn't have to live under that, under that threat, and this is a person that wants to run for president to have these employees to work for them, but yet you're threatening them, saying that you're going to slit their throats, right? It just doesn't make sense. And they go on and on and on. And these employees are expected to work under this kind of pressure. However, I'm grateful of the type of employees that I represent because they will get the job done, regardless of what threat come after them, because, they're used to being threatened. Nevertheless, it doesn't make it any more right. They should not ever be threatened, but they are the type of employees, though, that will get the job done. And I'm proud of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is definitely the case. And, one of the reasons that they're able to get the job done is because of the security and the benefits and all of that federal unions like AFGE has fought for. Contrary to, the what some people like this might think, people perform better when they're better compensated and when they're comfortable in their workplace and they're secure and all of this kind of stuff. And yet, unions in general are really just kind of the bane of a lot of these politicians' existence. But, government unions in particular, government employee unions in particular, they've got a particular distaste for us, right? Because for some reason they think just because we work for the government means we have to give up our constitutional right to freedom of association and right and unionization, and that's just obviously not the case.
No, not at all, not at all. It's just the opposite. Matter of fact, we take an oath when we are employed with the federal government, and we take that oath seriously. And that's what I really enjoy about federal employees. That oath means something, and they will go to bat every single day for America. We work for America, and we get the job done.
Absolutely. And then there are, there are legal hurdles to this too. There's the practical stuff that we've been talking about. It would be bad for citizens who don't get the services that they're used to from the federal government. It would be recession causing, obviously. But legally, the president does not have the authority to dismantle commissions and departments that Congress has created. Right? That you can't do that.
Correct. That is correct, Jacob. And many people don't understand that or have not understood that to this point. And yet they will think that the president can undo, or the president can do certain things that the president just doesn't have the power to do, because the Congress has taken that action. The president cannot undo an action that Congress has enacted.
Right. Yeah, and they're always talking about, executive overreach and stuff like this, but they want the unilateral authority to end entire departments that the United States Congress has put up. It's really, really wild. Reverend Kelley, I really appreciate your time. I want to be respectful of it, so I don't want to keep you much longer. Is there anything that you would want to leave folks with, just about, when they're thinking about this kind of stuff, about what these presidential candidates are saying, what should they be considering, especially in regards to, if you're a federal employee, when you're hearing folks say stuff like this? And then are there any, updates that folks should know coming down the pike from AFGE?
Well, Jacob, first of all, thank you for having me on the show today. I always enjoy coming to be a part of your show because it just reminds me of home. But, you know, I continue to ask people to pay attention to everything that's said. You cannot allow anything to get past you, because if a person is talking about cutting agencies, you know, they certainly can't be the right candidate when we need to be talking about how we fund agencies, right? If they're threatening federal employees, you can imagine what it would be like working for that individual. So we have to pay attention to everything that's said. As it relates to the government shutdown as we move forward, I encourage not just federal employees, but I encourage every single citizen of the United States of America to make a phone call to your representative and tell them, whether it be a Democrat or Republican, make that phone call and say to them that a shutdown is not an option. You know, we are tired of kicking the can down the road. We need to get a funding bill, you know, passed that will fund our government for the rest of the year. You know, and we are tired of every year, you know, we playing political football or volleyball or whatever you want to call it with federal employees. You know, stop using them as a scapegoat, and let's figure out how we fund America so that America can work and so that the American workers can get the job done like they want to. Remember, we are not on strike. We are locked out in the event of a shutdown, okay? We want to go to work, but if Congress in this event would tell us you cannot go to work. So, Jacob, thank you again for having me. I appreciate you, but I implore every citizen to make the phone call to the Congress of the United States of America.
Thank you, Brother Kelley. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Again, that was President Reverend Everett Kelley from Alabama. Leading the nation's largest federal employee union. I've got a lot of pride about that. He's been a good president. I really appreciate his work over on the Hill, having to wade through the swamp, as we say. Cannot be an easy job, especially in times like this. So really appreciate that. Another fun fact, he was the first black president of the Anniston Army Depot's local union down there. So a lot of history. There. We talked to him about becoming the first black president on the program a few years ago. If you want to go back and find that interview, it was good. I enjoyed it. We've got another interview lined up here about Medicaid expansion, and this one is really important, especially in light of the news coming out about tens of thousands of Alabamians losing Medicaid. Really, the crux of it is for no reason, right? Because there is no reason that they should have to go without insurance, especially when we are contemplating the medical bills for federal prisoners increasing by an estimated $400 million a year.
And we're currently building the most expensive prison, I think, in the U.S.
Yes.
And it was 2 prisons for $1 billion, I believe. Now it's one
prison for like $1.3 billion.
The BOGO deal busted, and we can't.
And that's just the medical bills though for prisoners has been revised up to about $400 million more. And the reason that Republicans are always saying, oh, we shouldn't expand Medicaid, we can't expand Medicaid, is because they say, and it's not exactly this, but they say $200 million a year is what it would cost to expand Medicaid. And it's like, well, if you did that, you could throw all the prisoners on Medicaid and you're going to save $200 million right there. I mean, it pays for itself to get Medicaid if you just consider how much it costs to administer health care to prisoners without that Medicaid expansion. But then, you're talking about tens of thousands of jobs that would be created. You're talking about, it's really priceless when you think about people not dying because they don't have health care.
And it's not like there's not other places in the world that have much more productive workers
Yeah.
Like, I just always look at Germany because it's a huge economy.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the same kind of education, very similar culturally. We have a ton of German people that live here, and we work over there and they have these social nets, social safety nets, and education and healthcare that support their workers. And lo and behold, their workers are outproducing us hour by hour.
Yep.
They're getting more stuff done, making more money.
Outproducing us hour by hour, and they work less. The average German worker works 3 months less per year than we do. 3 months. I mean, that's wild.
I'd take that vacation.
Yeah,
I'd take
good
it.
grief. And actually, speaking about the German workers, Unite All Workers for Democracy, which is the Reform Caucus in the UAW, they are doing a webinar with French and German Stellantis workers, talking about workers from those unions about the EV transition and about their 35-hour work weeks. So, it's not really that radical because people in other industrial countries are doing that. It's going to be on Zoom. Follow UAWD on Twitter, and you can find that and you can register for it. I have asked for a recording of that panel so we can play a couple clips next week. So we're going to cross our fingers that they're going to be recording that. I'm not sure if they are, but if they will, then I'll show you some stuff next week. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, so I got sidetracked a little bit. Medicaid expansion is important. We should do it. People should have health care. Everybody should have health care, but particularly folks that can't pay for it through themselves or their employer. And here's a conversation that Adam Keller pre-taped with a organizer with Cover Alabama, which is a coalition dedicated to expanding Medicaid in Alabama. Let's play that interview.
All right, folks, you're still listening to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk radio show. Really looking forward to this next interview, talking to a good friend of mine with Cover Alabama. And before I talk to her, I wanted to mention a couple of things about Medicaid expansion. Of course, listeners know I've been very passionate about this topic. It's one that I feel very strongly about, and I think it's just such an important issue for working people here in this state. And I wanted to share just a couple statistics with y'all, and this is the kind of information that Cover Alabama is putting out. Specifically, let's start with Madison County. We're recording right here in Huntsville, Alabama, so let's take a look at Madison County, one of Alabama's, fastest growing counties in the state. Let's see, we have 26,219 adults in Madison County who are currently uninsured. Over 11,000 of those would be eligible for health insurance under expanded Medicaid. Over 11,000. We could reduce the number of uninsured adults in Madison County by 44% with Medicaid expansion. And it's worth noting that almost 1 in 5 in Madison County have medical debt in collections. Almost 1 in 5. And a couple numbers across the state. There's been 14 total hospital closures in Alabama since 2010. Only 13% of women of childbearing age are uninsured in Alabama. It's only 13%, but 13% is 13% too many. Medicaid expansion would gain 20,000 new jobs in Alabama. 20,000 new jobs. And now I hear a lot of politicians brag about economic development when there's a few hundred new jobs, a few thousand new jobs. But Medicaid expansion would create 20,000 new jobs, and it would be across the state, right? From top to bottom, east to west. There would be a $327.7 million additional economic impact in Madison County in year one as a result of closing the Medicaid coverage gap. Over $300 million in economic impact just in Madison County, right? By providing this access to health care, the increased jobs, healthier population, the preventative care, the reduction of medical debt, all of this is a formula for success. And so that's why it's so important that folks speak out on this topic. And so that's why I wanted to bring on Whit from Cover Alabama to talk to us about the work that she's doing and how you can get involved in this fight. So, Whit, welcome to the Valley Labor Report.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me get you on the screen here because, you know, I'm in the studio by myself right now, and it's always tricky with technology. I'm not a pro by any means. But thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I wanted just to start by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what got you into this work. And of course, talk to me about your UMWA shirt. Love to see the UMWA camouflage on the Valley Labor Report.
Yeah, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I'm Whit Sides. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm a coal miner's daughter, so that's where this shirt is from. My dad was a coal miner. Both my granddads, most of my uncles, most folks I grew up with. So yeah, and that's my background in labor. But I am now the storyteller for Alabama Arise and for the Cover Alabama campaign. So I collect stories of folks that are in the Medicaid coverage gap.
So yeah, talk to us a little bit more about that, you know, in terms of collecting stories. What does that mean? And what are you doing?
Yeah, so my professional career started out in journalism, and so this is kind of the best of both worlds for me. I get to work in advocacy and journalism at the same time.
Awesome.
So I'm basically a nonprofit healthcare reporter. And so I collect stories of people that are not eligible for Medicaid in our state, but then also don't receive any health benefits from their work, or they can't afford private health insurance.
So why is it so important to hear like personal stories, right? Because, you know, I mentioned some statistics, and I'm a statistics kind of guy, but I recognize that that's not for everybody, right? And that's not what impacts everybody, particularly, you know, decision makers that we're trying to influence. So what is it about, you know, people's personal stories and testimonies that's so important?
I think it's just like anything else. People connect to a compelling story sometimes easier than they do numbers. That doesn't mean to say that the numbers in Alabama aren't compelling. Something that I didn't know before I joined Alabama Arise is that there are almost 300,000 people in the Medicaid coverage gap in Alabama. We're a small state. We've got, you know, I don't know, not very many million people right now.
Right.
Last time we checked. And so a huge chunk of that 300,000 people are living without health care coverage. And there's a fix out there. So I figured by sharing these stories, putting a face to this issue, then that'll be able to move the needle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested in some of the highlights so far of some of these stories that you've collected. Like, who are some of the folks that you've talked to, and what have they shared with you?
Yeah, so I've probably collected, or I've spoken to hundreds of people, but we're able to share the stories of probably 30 to 50 people so far. And they're all over the spectrum. In Alabama, it's nearly impossible to receive Medicaid coverage as a able-bodied adult.
Right.
Without expansion. And so the majority of folks I talk with are youngish working adults. And that's anyone from a new mother to, I've talked to some older workers too, low income earners who were facing health struggles. So I would, if I had to pick a story, I think they all have such a huge impact on me because people are sharing, some of the most vulnerable parts of their life. Most recently, Erin Mullins from Summerton, Alabama, that's in Walker County, close to where I grew up. She shared her story of what it was like living in the coverage gap and trying to navigate mental health care. So she was diagnosed with anxiety and panic disorder. And once she rolled off of her father's insurance, she basically had nowhere to go. So something that was easily managed with talk therapy and medication, now she had entered a mental health crisis.
Right.
And she couldn't access any of that. She mentioned that if she were paying out of pocket, it would have been $400 just to see her doctor. So she did that once or twice.
Right. But most people can't do that.
Yeah, right. Especially in your 20s too. She was just starting out as a hairstylist. So she worked in a pretty demanding job. She was on her feet all day. She was in a stressful environment. And so not being able to access mental health care, that was just, not great. So she shared her story with us, and she has gone on to share her story with some other regional outlets lately. And that's part of the most, the most fulfilling thing about my work is that these storytellers can grow into advocates once they learn more about, like, oh, what happened to me? I'm not alone.
Right.
There are hundreds of thousands of other people in my situation. So Erin has become an advocate, and she's been sharing her story like far and wide now. I'm very proud of her too. She just had a new baby. She just joined with her friend to start a new business, and taking the time to share her story can mean, the difference between someone being able to access care and knowing about their situation and not.
Right. That really is powerful. And I do think about how many people are in her exact situation. And, when we talk about the quote unquote workforce participation crisis in Alabama, and you think about how many people are struggling due to lack of health insurance, lack of health care. They're either uninsured or they're underinsured, and they're just not getting what they need to be successful at whatever they want to do, which, for many of them would include the workforce if it was possible. And so, it's just, hearing stories like that is very powerful, I believe. And I'm curious, like, so far, what's been the reaction to folks, when you've been able to share these stories out? Have you gotten any feedback from people about, what they felt like after they read these?
I think most of the time, after people read their stories, whether it's my friends, family, or our members at Arise, they always tell me, they're like, oh, well, that's so heartbreaking. And for me, I kind of see it through a different lens. I see it as Medicaid expansion offers a future to folks like this in the coverage gap. So I choose to, choose positivity. As far as workforce participation, so part of the series that Erin, who I spoke about earlier, she was part of a series called See the Gap that we published. And I spoke to dozens of hairstylists, barbers, and nail technicians in Alabama. And a lot of people don't realize, or they don't often think about, the people that are taking care of them, making them look good, the people that they see all the time don't have health care, can't access affordable care. And so it was a privilege of mine to be able to share those stories, and sharing those stories too has I've received so much feedback from people that say, wait, but they work. Hairstylists work, especially, 6 days a week, sometimes 12 hours a day.
Right.
I talked to a nail technician who was a salon manager, and she was always on her feet every day. She was there when it opened. She was there when it closed. And it was my nail salon too. And I had no idea. I had no idea she was facing so much medical debt. She didn't have insurance. She was doing what a lot of our family members and people that we love do, where they will try to treat things that they ought to go to a doctor for at home. So stories like that, I think, are unfortunately relatable. And so it's even that more important that we get them out there.
Wow. Yeah, there's a couple of things that really stuck with me in what you just said there. Like, for one thing, the treating at home, like, that is a very widespread phenomenon. Like, all you gotta do is go on Facebook, right? And you're gonna see some stuff where people are clearly pursuing home remedies and pursuing all sorts of stuff off the internet. And, it's just, yeah, it is a heartbreaking thing, but it also, like you said, it's an opportunity because, like, here's one of these clear-cut solutions and clear-cut policies. I mean, it is a no-brainer. There's a lot of issues out there that are very complicated or potentially divisive, but to me, this is a unifying issue, and the opinion polls even back that up, that a majority of Alabamians, even a majority of Republican voters in Alabama, support expanding Medicaid, and, it's a win-win for everybody involved. These folks, these brothers and sisters, these neighbors of ours, can get the treatment that they need and deserve. They can live a more fulfilling life. They can participate in the workforce. Employers can have, a better time recruiting and retaining a workforce that's healthier. We all benefit as a community from a healthier society. And then there's a massive economic impact of the job creation. The tens of thousands of jobs, the economic activity that's generated. Like I said in the intro, politicians love to brag about economic development, and I hear their numbers are a lot less than what Medicaid expansion brings, right? And a lot of these projects that, whatever you think of them, they're not necessarily creating 20,000 jobs. That's just huge. And so to be able to do something that benefits the economy but grows it from the bottom up and materially helps people in their real day-to-day lives and saves lives, I think that's just so huge. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing to get those stories out there, because a lot of times, the working poor, they don't have their stories told in the media, not enough. And so it's really important what you're doing. And I wanted to ask, how can folks share their story with you? How can they connect?
Yeah, well, something you said before I give folks the opportunity to share their story with me. Alabama is one of the most restrictive states when it comes to Medicaid eligibility. And so you can be working and, earning $50,000. We all know what that's like to have to split $50,000 over our family of 3 or 4. But that still makes you ineligible for those kind of benefits. So things like that, that's what, inspires me to continue doing what I'm doing. But yeah, folks can share their story with me. I'm on Twitter, X now, whatever you want to call it. I'm at Brightsides, SIDES. Also, you can go to coveralabama.org, click on stories, and you can always find me there.
That's awesome. Yeah. In terms of the coverage gap and just like how restrictive Medicaid is, in 2023, a family of 3 must make less than $4,475 a year.
Yeah.
A year. Less than $5,000 for a family of 3.
I don't think you can get groceries for a year with that.
That's not livable. That's just not livable. And in 2023, a family of 3 must make at least $24,860 a year to qualify for private insurance. right? So there's all these people stuck in between who are working their tails off, who have kids, who have elderly parents they're taking care of, who have all these different scenarios. They have untreated illnesses, untreated, addictions, whatever the situation may be. All these people who are working hard, and we could help them out. Over half of the people in the coverage gap are currently employed, right? So these are, by and large, the working poor. But even those who are unemployed or not in the labor force, whether they're students or caretakers or retirees, everybody deserves a decent life. Everybody deserves to be healthy and be able to fulfill their potential. And so why not do this? Why not do this and for the state and for our people? I just really do believe that Medicaid expansion is one of those issues that brings people together, and I really encourage folks to share your story with WIT. Just get those stories out there and share the series that she's already got out there. Really highly recommend it. I love that you talked to the barbers and the hairstylists. Like you said, kind of an overlooked group of hardworking folks, predominantly women, who are working really hard, often those really long hours on their feet, dealing with chemicals, dealing with customers and all that brings. Frankly, sometimes that can be difficult, and so it's just, it's a shame to think about how many folks out there are working hard like that, but can't go to the doctor, can't get medication that they need. We can do better. Alabama can do better, and we deserve to do better. And I think the more we share our stories and share our stories with each other, in conversation with each other, and build community that can fight back, I think we can do it. So, Whit, did you have any final words now that I'm done with my sermon?
No, that was great. I just wanted to say, you asked about some of the stories that I've received the most feedback about. I've unfortunately had to write stories or share stories of people that passed away, even in my own life while they were in the coverage gap. So I would encourage people, if you find yourself in that place, you realize you're in the coverage gap, because it can be a new concept for a lot of people. They kind of internalize it as some sort of moral failure when it's not. It's a, systemic failure. But if you realize you're in the coverage gap and you want to share your story, let's do it now. Let's do it now before it's too late. We don't want to lose any more people in the coverage gap, because this issue is life or death,
Absolutely. It's an urgent issue. We've been fighting this fight for way too long. But ultimately, I believe we can win this fight the more of us get involved. So, Whit, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and thanks for all you're doing to get these stories out there. And again, folks should go to coveralabama.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Really important interview. Looking forward to clipping that. Hope folks will share it around. And, earlier this year, Governor Ivey said that expanding Medicaid is something that she is seriously giving serious consideration, and that they just have to figure out how to make it work or whatever. So here's hoping that actually comes to fruition, because there is a lot of needless suffering, death, and deprivation because of the
and
lack
half
of
those
expansion.
people are workers, so those are people that would probably be working more days.
Yeah,
if they had health care.
Yeah, exactly. And the other people that are, the folks that are not workers are, by and large going to not be workers because of, a reasonable reason to not be workers. They're caretakers, they're disabled, stuff like this. And don't get me started on the disability, Social Security disability insurance. It is terrible. Absolutely awful. So We're going to take a break really quick. We're going to be right back, wrap it up with Boss Watch, and then head into overtime. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report. Oh, wait. Don't go to break yet. 844-899-TVLR. 844-899-8857 if you want to call in. Okay, be right back.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Ironworkers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Ironworkers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Come on, do poor workers, good news to do, I'll tell how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host today is Ben Job. Ben Job is filling in for Adam Keller. He is out of pocket again this week, but we'll forgive him. We're big fans of progressive discipline here, so this will only result in a written warning. We had a few text messages from the last couple of weeks, so we want to get to those.
And we do have a caller on the line as well,
fantastic.
Just so you're aware.
Yeah, we'll get to those right after these messages. Love the work you guys do. Keep up the great work. Tony from Wisconsin, IATSE Local 18, stagehand in Milwaukee County Parks. Very cool. Thank you, Tony. Here's a question. Does the new NLRB decision mean that we should expect to see new Starbucks unionized stores forced to get a contract? I know the CEO said he refused to negotiate a contract. Does the ruling change this? And the ruling that this text message is presumably referring to is the one that ordered back pay for union baristas, for thousands of union baristas that were denied new raises and benefits by Starbucks because of their unionization. And no, unfortunately, it does not force Starbucks to come to a new contract. That would require new statutory authority from Congress for the NLRB, but it is still a big deal for back pay for those thousands of baristas that are already unionized that they have missed out on, and looking forward to continuing to see more and more people join. This is a text message that I missed somehow from a couple of weeks ago. Hey, Jake and Adam, this is Jack from New Jersey. Labor activity heating up here in New Jersey this week as 1,700 plus nurses with United Steelworkers Local 4-200 approach the 2-month mark in their unfair labor practices strike against Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick. The hospital requested and received a preliminary injunction against their picket activity. I spent Wednesday morning on the line of a wake-up call picket, singing labor songs with nurses outside of the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas CEO's home with nothing but support from his neighbors. Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas is the largest hospital system in New Jersey, a state where hospital systems are very powerful, and if the nurses win the contract they're seeking, it could have a huge impact statewide. I also had the privilege of spending last night on the line with UAW Local 3039 at Stellantis New York PDC Parts Distribution Center just over the border in Tappan. Again, the community support was impressive, and the good folk who work harder every day than I ever have are fired up to get what they deserve. Fantastic. Appreciate those updates from New Jersey, Jack.
Yeah,
let's go
union's very popular, popular,
increasingly, many are saying. Let's go ahead and bring the caller on the line right. From a 317 area code. We've got a caller from a 317 area code. What's your name, and where are you calling from?
Hey, y'all, this is Will from Texas, North Texas. I'm a UPSer and a part-time shop steward. I called in just to sort of voice my general displeasure with the state of the Teamsters, with TDU, and with sort of labor media in general. I think we've done a real backslide in the politics in the Teamsters. Jimmy Hoffa Jr., we all knew Jimmy Hoffa Jr. was a business unionist. It was pretty clear. Sean O'Brien is generally the same type of business unionist, maybe a little tougher talk, maybe a little tougher stance, but all that's really changed at the IBT is the name tags. Sean O'Brien ran on transparency, and during the UPS contract campaign, it was a complete communications failure. There was the non-disclosure acts. What was released to the membership was muddled and confusing. It really wasn't like the way that Sean Fain has been going about his campaign with the UAW. The state of militancy at UPS is in absolute shambles. Y'all had Sean Orr on, and Sean Orr, Sean O'Brien, my union president, they're all talking about we won this historic deal, and now we need to go in and enforce the contract. Well, the panels at UPS have been siding with the company to fire militants. This is absolutely something Sean O'Brien knows about. This is absolutely something that all the union leadership are aware of. in the Southern region, on the Southern region panel, we had a longtime business unionist, Donnie West, right? We asked Sean O'Brien when he came down to Texas about the panels, and the panel, so the way it works is, get discipline. Discipline goes to a local hearing. If the discipline isn't handled at a local hearing, it goes to a panel, right? A panel is a collection of the company, a collection of the union. You get in there, you present your case, they adjudicate the case, right? The union in the Southern region traditionally has been business friendly. Donnie West and a lot of his sycophants in the Southern region ran the Southern region panel in an extremely pro-company way. Sean O'Brien said, we don't need panel reform, we just need to get the right people on the panel. So what did he do? He sunsetted Donnie West into retirement, and that's all he did, left his sycophants in place. And the result of this is militants from Texas, militants from Oklahoma have been losing their panel cases because the union is siding with the company, or the union bureaucrats, the union officials. So it really needs to get out that, they're saying we just need to enforce this contract. Well, the people who are trying to militantly enforce this contract are getting decisions ruled against them. I know a number of militants who have been fired from their jobs because these union officials have sided with them. And what's more is TDU, the Teamsters for a Democratic Union, have stopped being a watchdog because they are at the table with Sean O'Brien. And listen, I'm not against a popular front, right? I'm not against making coalition, right? Proximity to power is an important thing, but what do you use your proximity to power for if not to hold those people accountable? So I think it's a real bad state of affairs in the Teamsters right now. And what's worse is the politics of the Teamsters, it's completely mystified, right? Because it's not clear to people outside of the Teamsters and even within the Teamsters that Sean O'Brien is the same type of business unionist as Jimmy Hoffa Jr. So I just called in because I know y'all, give equal space to differing opinions. So I thought I'd call in and say, hey, Teamsters, UPSers, just because this contract campaign is over does not mean that we're not still fighting. And it doesn't mean, people have sort of moved on and they're focusing on the UAW, on Kaiser. And I think that's important. Those strikes are important. Biggest healthcare strike in I think history of this country, or at least in a very long time. That's important to focus on. But I'm trying to keep us, keep y'all informed about what's happening after the contract.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the most troubling thing to me that you talked about was the panel stuff. And I'll ask around and see if I can get some more information on that and see if there's I'd be interested in some of those cases if anything's been written about them. I don't know that I would necessarily agree about the campaign as far as the messaging being muddled. They did sign NDAs, which I wouldn't agree with. I think Sean Fain's approach has been better, but they were announcing wins, and they were able, the UPS, the Teamsters were able to get a lot of these wins actually before the contract expiration, and so it was a little bit of a different dynamic. But they were announcing wins, on some of the big subjects of bargaining, weeks and months before the deadline. And so, though that was a pretty kind of similar dynamic to what we're seeing with Sean Fain, even if it wasn't quite exactly as explicit and clear. But there was a pretty similar dynamic there, I thought, anyway. But the panel stuff that does seem concerning to me. So I'll see if there's I'll do some digging. I appreciate the call, Will. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
All right, talk to y'all later.
Yep, talk soon. I appreciate the call. If you want to get where he was, 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. We'll take more calls if you call in the second half of the show. In overtime, we're going to wrap up with Boss Watch. Boss Watch is a segment that we do every week where we take a look at what bosses are up to in the southern United States and her colonies, because bosses are all the time breaking the law, and nobody talks about it on the news, and so that's why we're here. Heading over to Florida to start out with, a 29-year-old employee of a Florida marine construction company drowned in 5 feet of water after being pinned under a fallen crane in March of 2023. Federal workplace safety investigators determined that the company could have prevented the fatality by following required safety standards. Employees of Upper Keys Marine Construction LLC were installing a piling foundation for a residential boat lift when the crane tipped over and fell into the water. The employee, who was inappropriately tasked to ride the load of the crane, became pinned under the crane's hammer and drowned. The U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration found the company violated federal safety standards when they failed to have a life-saving skiff immediately available during offshore operations. They permitted an uncertified crane operator to operate the equipment. They failed to comply with the crane's manufacturer's stability and load capacity, and they permitted workers to ride the load attached to the boom of a crane during pile driving operations. They also operated a crane that was not physically secured to the barge. OSHA issued the company 9 serious citations and proposed about $92,000 in penalties, an amount set by federal statute for the violations. The company has 15 business days from receipt of their citations to comply, request an informal conference with OSHA, or contest the findings. Over in Oklahoma, Worldwide Printing and Distribution Incorporated, a commercial printing, direct mailing, and direct marketing company operating out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, violated federal law when a supervisor harassed an employee with racial and national origin slurs after the employee shared her DNA ancestry results. The EEOC charged in a lawsuit last week. According to the EEOC suit, in or around August of 2022, the employee received results from an at-home DNA test kit showing she had ancestry from Cameroon and the Congo. When the worker's supervisor learned about her DNA results, the supervisor began calling her names such as Ape and Congo. The supervisor also began mocking the employee, saying she was, quote, swinging through trees and was a, quote, ape princess looking for a, quote, king. The employee repeatedly asked the supervisor to stop the harassment to no avail. When the employee complained about the harassment to a higher level manager, he participated in the harassment and did nothing to stop it. The EEOC charges that the harassment was so intolerable the employee was forced to resign. But not even her resignation stopped the harassment. According to the lawsuit, the supervisor obtained the employee's phone number and sent her a text calling her Congo following her resignation. The EEOC filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Oklahoma after first attempting to reach a pre-litigation settlement via its reconciliation process. They are seeking monetary relief for the victim, an order prohibiting similar discrimination and harassment, and other relief. Over in Louisiana, EcoServe LLC is an industrial cleaning company in Abbeville, Louisiana. They violated federal law by engaging in a pattern or practice of refusing to hire applicants who were black, female, or 40 years old or over, and by firing a human resources employee who opposed the discriminatory practices. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission charged in a lawsuit filed last week. According to the lawsuit, EcoServe instructed a former human resources employee to limit the number of African American workers she hired. The HR official also became aware of other discriminatory practices of not hiring women or older workers for non-office positions. The HR official also opposed EcoServe's practices by refusing to discriminate and informing a manager that she believed the company's hiring practices violated the law. Shortly thereafter, EcoServe retaliated against her by firing her. The lawsuit alleges that evidence confirmed that EcoServe routinely engaged in discrimination by denying employment to black, female, and older applicants for non-salaried, non-office positions. The EEOC filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana after first trying to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its conciliation process. We have several dishonorable mentions this week. A worker at Six Flags Over Georgia was killed after she fell out of a van and hit her head on the asphalt. The worker was a scare actor being transported with others during a Halloween activity at the park. Employees reached out to a large Twitter account about Georgia and said that this happened because they were, and always were, being transported in a van with the doors open and, quote, no way for the scare actors to secure themselves inside. Inspectors with the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration observed employees of A1A Roofing Contractor, LLC, of Loxahatchee in Florida, working without fall protection on pitched roofs at heights of up to 32 feet. They also found the subcontractor allowed one worker to use a broken harness and failed to train employees on how to recognize and prevent falls. OSHA cited the company for similar violations in September of 2022. OSHA is proposing $160,000 in penalties. The U.S. DOL recovered $37,000 in stolen health and welfare benefits for 56 employees at a Wendy's franchise in Guam. A McDonald's manager in Oklahoma sexually harassed a 17-year-old girl, according to the lawsuit, after subjecting the teenager to sexual comments and innuendo for about a month. The male supervisor grabbed her by the waist in a dark, isolated storage shed and said he could rape her. When Archfellow LLC, the franchise owner, learned about the incident and other sexual harassing conduct by the supervisor, it failed to take prompt or effective remedial action to protect the girl and other workers. Instead, the company allowed the supervisor to continue supervising the victim and other teenage girls. An employee at Sun Chemicals manufacturing facility in Kansas City, Missouri, was subjected to a racially hostile work environment when a coworker verbally and physically harassed him with profanity in the lunchroom, followed him into the locker room, slammed his hand into the locker next to the employee, and called him the N-word. Supervisory employees at the facility were aware of that coworker using the N-word in the workplace on multiple prior occasions, but failed to take prompt and appropriate corrective action. When the employee complained about being racially harassed by his coworker, Sun Chemical retaliated by issuing him a written warning for using profanity against the harasser. A manager at a Chipotle in Lenexa, Kansas, repeatedly asked a Muslim employee to remove her hijab, pressuring her to show him her hair. Despite the teen's rejections and complaint to management, Chipotle failed to act to stop the manager's harassment, and Chipotle's inaction resulted in the manager escalating his abuse, ultimately grabbing and forcibly removing part of the teen's hijab. After the teen reported the incident, Chipotle again failed to take prompt corrective action and instead retaliated against the teen by refusing to schedule her to work additional shifts unless she agreed to transfer locations, while allowing her harasser to continue working at the same location. Just really, really terrible stuff. Terrible stuff. And that's what bosses do every week. Every week.
And it's sad that there's always a lot of lead-up time in most of these situations. And it continues, does not get addressed, and then this happens.
Yep, absolutely terrible. So that's going to wrap it up for us on the show today. On the first half of the show, we're going to be heading into overtime. If you're listening to us on the radio, you can find us online, Facebook, and YouTube at The Valley Labor Report, and continue and you can continue listening to us for another hour and a half, where in overtime we're going to be talking to Ed Flash Ferenc from America's Workforce Radio Podcast over in Ohio. He hosts America's only daily union talk radio show. So we're really excited to talk to him about the news of the day. Just a reminder, Labor Notes, always hosting some online trainings. You can go to labornotes.org and check out what they have going on there. TVLR.fm/donate to make a one-time or monthly recurring contribution. You can also buy our new shirt, tvlr.fm/store. We have about 25 extra. And if you are a member of a union and you think that your members might be in your local might be interested in like a bulk order, you can let me know and we can work something out. We can get you a discounted price per shirt if you do a bulk order through us. It has to be at least 50. Before, when we did our pre-order, we could have done 10 for a local. But now, since it would be its own order, it would need to be at least 50. At least 50. So if you're with a local, you want to do a bulk order, holler at me, tvlr.fm/contact. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and head into overtime. Like I said, we're going to be talking to Ed Flash Ferenc. Also going to be giving you a huge update on the UAW strike. They were able to secure a big win from GM, who agreed that all future battery plants would go under the UAW's national agreement. So we're going to be breaking that down in the second half of the show. And if you don't come over to the internet with us, we'll see you next week. All power to the workers. Okay. We're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody staying with us. Like I said, really excited for overtime today. Always love talking to Flash. About once a month, Adam goes on America's Workforce, so definitely check his stuff out.
He's got a lot of context on the history of it too. Being in it every day, that's a lot. That's a lot.
For 30 years, guy has been doing this radio show for 30 years.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So we're gonna go ahead and take a break. We'll be right back with overtime. Stay tuned.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk radio show. We are now in overtime. Like I said, we have got some great stuff for you. You're going to be talking to Ed Flash Ferenc, the United States only daily labor radio host. 30 years. Really excited to talk to him. I always love talking to him. He's a good guy. Let's go ahead and we're going to jump right to this UAW stuff.
We do have a caller.
We've got a caller.
Line.
I saw that,
okay.
But we need to. I want to make sure that I get to this UAW stuff because this is some big stuff. So I apologize, caller. We're going to have to wait until you might want to call back in about 45 minutes or so. We'll take calls after Flash. So UAW, like I said, folks. I mean, just a huge announcement from the UAW yesterday on the negotiations with the Big Three. Genuinely, probably the most consequential announcement, the most consequential win that they've announced so far. And it's a win that was announced despite the fact that not only were the companies saying that this isn't going to happen. You know, they were talking about that on the COLA. They said, COLA, we're never bringing it back. You gave it up, and we're never going to give it back to you. COLA, remember, cost of living adjustment. It is what that does is it basically adjusts your wage for inflation year over year. That way, automatically. That way, the workers are not the only people who take the who bear the risk of inflation, right? The bosses have to bear some of that risk with us under a COLA. And so they were able to win that, and not even just win an emergency COLA formula that'll kick in, you know, if there's 10% inflation or whatever. They were able to win back at Ford the 2009 COLA that they gave up to save the companies from bankruptcy. That is huge, huge news. And the news that they released yesterday is, I think, even bigger than that. And not only were the companies saying that that you're never going to get this just on principle, like, you know, this is not on the table, they were saying that it was not legally possible for them to give the UAW this win, and yet they did it. Let's listen to this announcement from Sean Fain from his live stream yesterday.
Good afternoon, UAW family. It's happened again. Moments before this broadcast, we have had a major breakthrough that has not only dramatically changed negotiations, but it's going to change the future of our union and the future of our industry. We were about to shut down GM's largest moneymaker in Arlington, Texas. The company knew those members were ready to walk immediately. And just that threat has provided a transformative win. GM has now agreed in writing to place their electric battery manufacturing under our National Master Agreement. We've been told for months that this is impossible. We've been told the EV future must be a race to the bottom. And now we've called their bluff. What this will mean for our membership cannot be understated. The plan was to draw down engine and transmission plants and permanently replace them with low-wage battery jobs. We had a different plan, and our plan is winning at GM.
Look, devil's in the details, and we're going to see what happens. We're going to see, you know, what they're able to get, because just like the the parts distribution centers, for a long time they were on a second tier of employment, even though they were under the national agreement, right? So the assembly plant workers would be making like $30, $35 an hour, while the parts distribution workers were making $20 an hour, okay? So just because they are under the national master agreement does not in and of itself guarantee them all the same wages as the assembly plant workers. But what it does is it brings them and everything in there regarding their employment into the negotiations and onto the table. And that in and of itself is huge, because, and the reason that they were saying legally that they can't do this, it's not legally possible, it would be illegal for me to put this stuff on the table, is because all of these battery plants are joint ventures, or many of them are. Not all of them, but many of them are. A joint venture, meaning it is partially owned by GM and partially owned by another company, typically like a foreign auto company or something. And so they're joint ventures. And so they say, look, oh no, it's not just us that own these, it's other people. And so because this is a whole different thing, you can't bring this into the big three negotiations. It's a whole different can of worms, right? It's not the same. We can't put it on the table. And GM just did. It's on the table, and now obviously the UAW is going to be pushing for the same standards at these battery plants that they've got at the other manufacturing plants, and that is going to be a fight in and of itself. But just having these battery plants on the table and being able to negotiate over what happens there is enormous. That is huge, and it is a big step towards actually being able to create a just transition towards electric car manufacturing, electric vehicle manufacturing, instead of, like Shawn Fain said, having the electric vehicle manufacturing only be a fig leaf for a race to the bottom. Because that's what it's been so far. That's what it's been so far. All of these big three automakers, the foreign automakers, they've been creating these battery manufacturing plants, sometimes in the South, but also in the Midwest and in other places, and paying these people pitifully. $16 an hour, no pension, bad health care, dangerous working conditions, much more dangerous than a union plant. Terrible. I mean, literally a race to the bottom is how the battery plants have been used. And so for them to have it on the table is an enormous, enormous thing. And so that happened at GM. Other gains they were less specific about from Ford and Stellantis, but all of the gains from all of the companies considered, the UAW decided to this week spare all of the big three from any strike expansions to reward them for the behavior at the bargaining table. And so that is, that's a really, just huge, huge news. And so with GM agreeing to this, it is no doubt going to be, there is no doubt going to be the Stellantis and Ford are going to have to fall in line, right? Because GM now is going to be, they're going to be wanting Ford and Stellantis to fall in line on this battery plant issue, because if they don't, then Ford and Stellantis are going to be able to undercut them in as far as labor costs. Which, let's remember, labor costs actually not that big a part of the vehicle. 5% actually of vehicles produced in North America. 5% of the cost that you pay at the lot is to wages, is to compensation for labor. So not really a whole lot, and that's a big reason why, despite the fact that all of these vehicles that you purchased that were manufactured in Mexico or wherever the hell for $12 or $30 a day instead of an hour. If you're able to save that much on labor, why is the car not so much cheaper? You pay the same for the car. There are even models of vehicle that it's the same model and they've got multiple manufacturing plants. And so it's the model is produced in America and also in Mexico. The Mexican produced cars are not any cheaper. They're not any cheaper. For one, because labor costs actually not that much of the car is, not much of the cost that you pay at the dealership goes towards labor, but also because they just want to steal all the money that would be going to workers and put it in their pockets, in the pockets of their shareholders. Remember, Shawn Fain told us that more money went to shareholders through dividend payments than to labor over the course of the last contract, since 2019, over the last 4 years. That's insane. CEOs at these big three companies, GM, Stellantis, and Ford, are making between 260 and 400 times the median employee. Absolutely unacceptable. And so, yeah, I mean, I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that. Huge news. And also, incredible drip from Sean Fain, for those that are only listening.
The Drip Watch is active.
Yeah, the Drip Watch. That's going to be another new segment, Drip Watch, where we talk about labor leaders and how good their drip is. And Sean Fain's drip was good. For those of you who are just listening, he's wearing a T-shirt that says "Eat the Rich." So that's awesome. Very cool. There was an NBC reporter that was tone policing him on Twitter, saying that, oh, this is inappropriate, people's, livelihoods are at stake, blah, 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 memes are bad, and, whatever, bootlicker is kind
memes
of my
are scary.
Yeah, memes
hurt
are
my
scary.
feelings.
Oh, no, I'm going to, tweet more about how the memes hurt my feeling than about how, workers are literally being killed in these battery plants. By the big three automakers. Absolutely insane and terrible, and that's kind of the state of play for mainstream journalists, supposed to be speaking truth to power, but they are instead tone policing workers and their leaders. So yeah, really exciting news, and as always, great speech from Sean Fain. This is how he closed it out.
And I'll tell it to you straight. The billionaires and company executives think us auto workers are just dumb. They think we don't get it. They think we only understand the power of a supervisor yelling at us or an assembly line coming at us. They look at me and they see some redneck from Indiana. They look at you and see somebody they would never have over for dinner or let ride on their yacht or fly on their private jet. They think they know us, but us auto workers know better. We may be foul-mouthed, but we're strategic. We may get fired up, but we're disciplined. And we may get rowdy, but we're organized. Not everything is about pulling out the bazooka. We've been very careful about how we escalate this strike, and we have designed this strategy to increase pressure on the companies, not to hurt them for its own sake, but to move them, to get them to say yes when they want to say no. And today is a perfect example of that.
Really great stuff. Really great stuff from Sean Fain, my president. Yeah, so there we go. That's the update on the UAW. We're going to talk some more about that here in just a minute. But we have Ed Flash Ferenc on the line now. He is the host of America's Workforce, the country's longest-running union radio program and the only daily union radio program. Been doing it for about 30 years. Flash, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. It's always good to talk to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for being a guest on our show so many times. You're always there when the moment arises. But I haven't been there since the beginning. I just want to clarify that. I started 25 years ago. The show started in 1993, so we're in our 30th year. And I started in 1998, so 25 years for me. 3 years podcasting in June. Started podcasting right when the pandemic pretty much started in June of 2020. And the good news is, I want to tell you, maybe about 8 months ago, we were in the top 15% of all podcasts. And you have to understand there's 2 million podcasts going on right now. And just about 3-4 weeks ago, we're in the top 1%. So it's really been exploding. And we're not on every day. We're on every weekday, Monday through Friday.
Right, yeah.
Just to be clear. Yeah. But it's a great show. I love doing it. I got a strong labor history in my family. My dad was a steel worker. And I might have told you this the last time I was on the show. I worked 2 summers in a steel mill with my dad. This was U.S. Steel, the old Cuyahoga Works, which is, been mothballed like so many steel mills today. But I worked there in the second summer. I told my dad, and I told the coworkers, man, Dad, I don't know how you did this for 42 years.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going into radio. And a couple of the guys laughed at me. And next year, hey, there it was. I got in at $2 an hour at an AM station. I went across the hall to the FM station, and the rest is history.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
it was a fun time.
Yeah, on top of now 25 years doing a union radio program, Flash was a big Ohio celebrity back in the 80s, right? You were doing just regular like rock talk radio.
Yeah. Well, it was pretty much rock and roll. It was WMMS, the home of the Buzzard. The Buzzard came to light in 1974. And the Buzzards return to Hinckley every year. I don't know if that's big news down there, but like March 15th, they return to Hinckley. And at that time, Northeastern Ohio was going through a big change. We lost a lot of factories. They were closing. A lot of companies were just moving south or closing up altogether. And Cleveland was pretty much, they called it the mistake on the lake. And it was a dying city. So we were thinking, well, what would be the bird that would fly over a dead city? It has to be a buzzard.
There you go.
So it became the mascot, and it changed over the years. But what made the station so popular is, well, we were just in tune with the city. When the factories closed, rock and roll became the industry, and we were on the cutting edge of a lot of new music. David Bowie broke out of Cleveland. Rush broke out of Cleveland. A lot of big acts broke out of Cleveland, and I think it's just the roots of rock and roll were here, and that's why we have the Rock Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And they're adding on to that too. By the way, that's a union-built facility.
Very cool.
It opened in 1995. They're adding another 50,000 feet to that, and that's going to be all union as well. So it's a good union city in Northeastern Ohio, no doubt about that.
And you know what building I just learned from Twitter that was union made? Have you seen the videos of the Sphere in Las Vegas?
Oh, one of my kids is there right now. Yeah,
really?
My stepson. Yeah, my stepson. He left Thursday morning, and he called me. He called me yesterday. This is funny because he pretty much lost his voice. I said, John, are you all right? He says, I was singing every song because he's next to Pearl Jam. Next to Pearl, he's gone to 39 Pearl Jam shows. And let me say, he's raised in rock and roll. When I was working at MMS, he was one of our interns there. So he grew up in the concert business. He went to all the shows. And he's just carrying that tradition on, even with his kids, my grandkids. And one of my grandkids went with him Thursday night as well. But I talked to him on a Friday morning, yesterday morning, and he didn't have a voice left because he was so. He says there's nothing like it, absolutely nothing like it. And he says, God, it would be great. He's thinking of if Pink Floyd would be touring today, that would be the place for them. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely on my list. If you haven't seen it, I mean, you got to go look at some of the videos. It's really crazy, and it is union made. The production is done by the Stagehands Union there, and the architectural stuff was done by the sheet metal Smart Sheet Metal Union. So, yeah, pretty cool.
160,000 speakers, and they're in the seats.
Wow,
can you believe that?
And like 2 million LED lights. And it's funny, if you look at some of the like close-up stuff, you know, if you look far away, it's really amazing at kind of the fidelity and how high definition it is. But if you get, you know, close to it, where you're like, you can touch it, you can see that the LED lights are like, they're like this big, and they're just like a floodlight kind of thing. But if you get far enough away, it looks like it's a TV. It's just a marvel of engineering. Really, really.
I got to get it on my bucket list, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt
about it. But let's talk about America's workforce. You said that you've been you've broken into the top 1% of podcasts. What are some of the stuff? Some of the folks that you've been talking to, some of the stories that you've been covering over the last few weeks.
Well, just like you, we've been hitting on the UAW almost daily, and we had a couple of good interviews with folks, scholars. There was a guy, I suggest you might check him out, Dan Graff,
and he's with the Higgins Labor Program at Notre Dame. And what he said right away, and I know you're reflecting on the same thing that I am, it's the militancy of the new union leaders like Sean O'Brien with the Teamsters and obviously Sean Fain with the UAW. And he pointed out that he feels that he is channeling Walter Reuther. Now, Walter Reuther, legendary auto leader back in the 30s. I mean, he did the sit-down strikes back against GM, and he feels he's in the same vein as that. And I have to point out too, John Nichols at the Nation magazine pointed out when Joe Biden, President Biden, went to the picket line a couple of weeks ago, he went to the same area. He went to Reuther's local.
Yep.
So I think he's on the same vein. Because he's clearly the most union-friendly president since FDR, and that was FDR's time back in the 1930s. So we hit on that. I have a good show coming up on Monday, and all these are it isn't posted yet. But I talked to another. She's a contributing writer for the Nation magazine. Her name is Sarah Lazar. She also writes for Workday Cleveland. Are you familiar with her?
Yes, she's been on the program a few times, and she has been my editor when I've written for In These Times. She used to work at In These Times magazine, and so she's edited a few of my pieces. She's still
contributing to In These Times, and she talked about the plight of the auto worker. And and you know what? In your show, America's Workforce, we try to talk about the worker point of view, which, as you know, is missing in mainstream media. So much missing. And I said this on my show so many times. When the Teamsters were talking about striking at UPS, what did they talk about in the mainstream media? Oh, you're not going to get your package delivered. There might be a strike. They're probably going to want a whole lot of money. I said, wait a minute, slow down here. Let's talk about the demands. Let's talk about what's going on as a UPS worker. And Sarah does that so well in the article. She had one individual she talked to. He's not even 40 years of age, and he can barely walk. And it's the repetitive, the musculoskeletal injuries, and the fact that they used to have, and I didn't realize this until I talked to her, they had like an ergonomics official and this was GM. I don't know if all three of them had it, but they had somebody that would be in tune with what's going on the assembly line, so workers can get some help. And it's not like these, as you know, these are things that happen over time, and they're working their butts off. In many cases, these auto workers are working 6-7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Yep. Imagine the toll on your body. Now that's what we have to talk about, and that's primarily why they want the 32-hour week, the work week, because it's grueling. So I mean that we're focusing on that, and I want to call attention to one of our sponsors on the show is the United Steelworkers. Our presenting sponsor is Labor's International, Terry O'Sullivan, who is now President Emeritus, but we're still continuing with them. And we definitely we're tilted toward the building trades because the building trades clearly need a lot more trades members, brothers and sisters there, because there's a lot of building going on. But the steelworkers, I come from that family, and they've been true sponsors over the years. And sadly, they lost a great leader here in Tom Conway. What we did last Tuesday, his service was Tuesday, and our producers Kelsey took a number of from the last 3 years, little snippets of what I spoke to Tom about labor history. He brought up in one of the shows, the Homestead strike back in the 1890s. We talked about the Infrastructure Act and the fact that, hey, we need to get, this was before it was even passed, to make sure that it's all American and union made steel. That's the important stuff on there. But we put that all together and packaged that in that show. So we have to be topical. We have to showcase the leaders like Tom Conway that made a difference, and he made a true difference. I read an op-ed that I had. I was saving this. In fact, I was talking to Kelsey Coyne, our producer. I said, let's try to get Tom Conway on the show because, as you know, there's a lot of organizing going on. Sadly, the organizers, once they get the union formed, they're having a very difficult time getting the first contract.
Right.
And Tom Conway wrote an op-ed piece on this, and it's probably on the Steelworkers website because he was one great negotiator, how important it is to be tough on the management or the owner of the company to make sure you keep hammering that point home. We have to get this. We have to get this. And there was a couple choice words that Fred Redmond was on the show yesterday from the AFL-CIO. He worked with Tom, and he said, yeah, there was a few choice words that Tom brought to the table to make sure he had to get it over the finish line. And he finally got his way. And that's how we remember Tom Conway. It's important that especially the younger generation knows what the older generation brought to working families. It's so important.
Absolutely. And did you see, and maybe, well, we can talk some about California here in a bit because there's a lot of mixed news. There's some good news and some really bad news coming out of California. So I'll put a pin in that for a second. But you talked about UPS. You are not like very online, so you don't see like a lot of YouTube shows or stuff like that, do you?
Not too many, no.
So there's this guy who's pretty popular. I mean, much mulch more popular than us on YouTube. Patrick Bet David. Guy's got like millions of followers or whatever. He's a multi-hundred millionaire. Made his money in insurance. So you know that he's a very hard worker, right? You know, super legitimate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can I stop you right there? Insurance. I tell you, everybody's got an insurance story, okay? This is the only company on the planet that can take your money, okay? And then when you have a claim, deny payment to you. Now, I don't know, man, that's a pretty good racket in my opinion. They take your money and they raise their rates. Yep. And then when you have a medical claim or a car claim, oh, we can't cover that. I'm sorry, we can't cover that. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no. So he's an insurance salesman. So, you know, super like above board, very ethical kind of guy, right? And now he does a podcast. And he was covering the UPS stuff. And he was talking about how terrible it was that UPS drivers are going to be making $170,000 a year. And now, you know, okay, we can just set aside for the moment that $170,000 a year would be everything included, all benefits included, and including overtime by the end of the contract for UPS drivers at the top rate. So, you know, you've got all sorts of caveats. The majority of UPS workers are not drivers. They're warehouse workers. They have different rates of pay. A lot of drivers are not at the top rate. They're in their first, second, or third year. And, you know, you're not guaranteed overtime necessarily, all this kind of stuff. But, okay, theoretically, by 2028, if you work all this overtime, if you include your health care and your pension benefits and all of this, maybe you get $170,000 all told. Maybe. That's what the media was saying. And so he was presenting it like that's what they were going to be making immediately and how terrible that was. And he said something about, maybe I should go work for UPS. And it's like, do it. Go. Like, what are you waiting on? Go work at UPS then. I don't know who's stopping you. Yeah. It's just, it's so frustrating when people, especially when people like that, you know, talking totally out of turn. They don't know anything about what they're talking about and acting like it's so ridiculous that, you know, a worker would be well compensated for doing, you know, really difficult labor, you know, driving around in the hot sun, delivering these huge packages. I mean, you know, they deserve every bit and more of what they get. And the idea that some guy worth $200 million is going to be chastising them is just, I don't know, crazy.
Well, that's the wedge that the super wealthy like to drive in between themselves and the rest of us. I mean, it's pretty typical. This came up, you remember the bakers went on strike. I think it was with the cereal companies, Kellogg's, a couple of years ago.
They've been on strike at a few different places. They went on strike at Frito-Lay. They went on strike at Kellogg's. And right now, actually, there are some bakery, you know, BCT GM. They've been on strike since June, about 200 of them in Memphis at a soy protein production plant. So anyway, sorry,
I remember when that came up. No, that's fine. There was some pitch by management saying that they were making $130,000 a year.
Right.
And again, they just throw that out of there. GM, well, with the getting back to the auto workers, I don't know if it was, I think it was GM saying, or Ford saying that if we paid the auto workers this, we'd go broke. I mean, come on. And look what they're making.
Right.
And they really screwed themselves up on that whole thing, because they gave themselves, 40% pay raises
right.
a little while ago. So, I mean, and you notice it really hasn't come up that much that that people want to be auto workers all of a sudden, to your point, dealing with the guy that got the insurance business and all that. But no, but it's that wedge. I mean, they want to do that. They want to make it look like the unions, unions are driving up the wages, driving up the benefits, and ultimately we're going to go broke. That's what's going to happen. So that you know what, we're going to deal with that for a long time. Just be ready for that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the stations that we're on is a conservative radio station. I think I've told you that before, and so I hear that a lot on the station that we are on during the week. So we only have so long to try to push back against some of that, but we do what we can. But yeah, I know, like you, I have really been enjoying seeing Sean Fain, and his, I don't know if you're do you know what drip is?
I'm sorry, drip?
Yes, drip. That's what
we're
doing, the vocab test.
Yeah, so that's what the kids today, that's what they call
your threads, your
threads,
fit,
your style, your clothes
essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's drip. And so Sean Fain had some drip on yesterday. I don't know if you had time to watch watch his stream, but I enjoyed seeing that.
Well, I saw the Eat the Rich shirt,
Yeah.
so I mean that speaks for itself. So
yeah. There you go. And so the other big strike in the news, the biggest strike in the news, you've got Kaiser in California, but bigger than that in terms of number of people that are on strike is SAG-AFTRA. You've still got 160,000 workers that are on strike. The writers just ended their strike, and they won a lot of good stuff. I know that you've talked to people from the writers union about, during negotiations, before the strike started, during the strike, and I'm sure you've talked to people since the strike was over. And people may not know, but you're a member of SAG-AFTRA. You were a member of AFTRA before it merged with SAG. The AFTRA stands for American Federation of Television and Radio
Artists, yeah, TV radio artists, right?
There you go.
That merger happened over a decade ago.
Yes, over a decade ago they merged. So as a SAG-AFTRA member, how does all of these negotiations, how do they look to you? I know that you're not involved in the negotiations per se. You're not doing a lot of acting or voice acting and stuff in the industry now, but I'm sure that you've got folks in the unions still. And so how does everything look like? How does it look like it's going to you?
Well, let me just backtrack a little bit. I'll be a 50-year member, by the way, of AFTRA, because I joined, when I joined, it was WHK, WMMS. They were union stations. They were owned by Mallright Communications, and that union is long gone over there. They're part of the iHeart Media chain now. But it'll be 50 years next year. And over a decade ago, they merged with SAG, and it was kind of funny too, because when they merged with SAG, all of a sudden I started getting these DVDs in the mail, and I was wondering what's going on over here. But you heard of the SAG-AFTRA awards, and so we get to vote on those. So that's one of the benefits of my union. I get to see a lot of the movies, and many of them are Academy Award movies. And now things are going to be different this year. And I often joke that now that I'm in the same union now as George Clooney. Although I'm not making the same money, but I think I am now because I'm not on strike and he is on strike. So there's a little difference over there. But I support what's going on right now. I've been reading a lot about it and hearing a lot about it. Bottom line is the George Clooneys of the world, the Meryl Streeps of the world, they get all the attention. It's just like the baseball players or football players. You think if there's a select few that make a whole lot of money, and then there's everybody else. when it comes to SAG-AFTRA, there's 160,000 members. About 32,000 of them are extras. They're background people. They ain't getting paid very much.
Right.
And these are the folks that could see their jobs disappear because of artificial intelligence. There's a story that I picked up, and I talked about this on the show, about how artificial intelligence is being used now. They would grab one of these actors or actresses, and they would have a van. They'd come on site, and they'd say, well, let's turn this way, let's turn that way. Let's, do all these different movements with your body, speak, just talk, read this line, read that line. And you'd be in there for maybe a couple of hours, and you're done. And it's over. You get paid for that one session, and that's it. They can use whatever they want for as long as they want it. And that's a big issue. And we're seeing that, well, what's going on with robotics. I mean, pretty soon, when you go to a restaurant, you won't even be served by a waiter or waitress anymore. It'll be a robotic type of thing. The whole thing that scares me about the future, and I often say I'm glad I'm on the back nine sometimes, because you're seeing automation in every different aspect of life. The longshoremen were ready to go on strike because they wanted to use robots to unload the ships off the coast of Los Angeles and Long Beach. They said, if you're going to bring them over there, we're walking out. I mean, we have to put our foot down on this kind of stuff. I get it. Things change. There's technology and all that. You got to find ways to embrace that and make sure that the jobs aren't going to disappear. Getting back to your comment, though, I totally support it. I think they're going to make some progress now. This is my gut telling me. They finally got back to the bargaining table. The writers have settled. I think that I know they were ratifying that contract this week. That process might be over, but it looks like they're finally going to settle that and sign off on the contract. And the other, I feel that SAG-AFTRA members, they're going to come to some agreement soon on that. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of different contracts. I'm not part of it, but I think Fran Drescher is doing a great job. She's doing a great job. Again, another militant type of labor leader, a new style labor leader. That's, this is the right place and the right time. If you want to be vocal about workers, now is the time.
Absolutely. Since I thought about it, I wasn't originally going to ask you about this, but it kind of came up, or I thought about it during the conversation. Everything that's going on in California, have you seen that they are, and this is one of the things that Gavin Newsom has done that is good. He signed into law a bill that would that will mandate now 1 week instruction in high school for workplace rights. So, how to get in touch with the Department of Labor, how to form a union, how to file a complaint with OSHA, stuff like that. A whole week on it. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. I appreciate that. That's great. Because he's done some things that kind of raised a few eyebrows.
Yes.
About the unemployment benefits for the strikers. Now, they have those benefits in New York. I don't know if you're aware of that. So the SAG-AFTRA members in New York are getting unemployment benefits, but not in California. But apparently their unemployment compensation fund is like almost $20 billion in the red. So that's kind of why he didn't go that route. But no, I like that. That's a great idea. Something we probably won't see in Florida, right?
Yeah, probably not in Florida, probably not in Alabama. Although our labor council, if we have anything to say about it, we're going to try to get in there anyway with our own local school boards. And Adam had talked to you about some lectures that he gave to some schools about labor history and stuff like that. So we're hoping to we're wanting to expand on that program and formalize it with some local schools here soon. But like you said, Gavin Newsom vetoed unemployment for striking workers. He also vetoed a bill that would make it easier for farm workers to organize. He vetoed OSHA protections for domestic workers. And this is a guy who's clearly he wants to be president, obviously. And so how does he think he's going to do that by constantly pissing off unions?
Here's my take on that. You know how divided the country is right now, and the way California is being perceived is La La Land. It's far, far left. So he's trying. This is kind of the Bill Clinton strategy to kind of go more center and appeal to the moderates, because there's a lot of people. You know this. There's a lot of people in the middle. The far right, the far left. It's not gonna come in a multitude amount of people. America is pretty much in the middle, and that's what he's trying to appeal to here. I'll tell you one person that I got my eye on is Gretchen Whitmer, the governor in Michigan, and I salute Michigan turning around right to work. That was great, and I'm hoping. Now, we're not a right to work state in the state of Ohio, but I think we got some of that Alabama blood up here. I don't know, man. It's definitely turned red. Ohio used to be a bellwether state. It used to be a purple state, and it would go Democrat, it would go Republican. But right now we have a super majority in the House and the Senate, and gerrymandering is all part of that. Right. And hopefully that can change. But Michigan, hats off to Michigan. I'll tell you, they did the right thing over there.
Yeah, Michigan has really been doing some good stuff. Not only did they reinstitute or repeal right to work, they reinstituted prevailing wage, which is another really big thing.
Right.
Illinois has been doing some good stuff. J.B. Pritzker, I've been impressed with. As far as Democrats go, him and Whitmer have been doing some good stuff. So we'll see what they do. I definitely. If there were a primary in 2028 and we have Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, and J.B. Pritzker, I'd be leaning towards the latter two than Gavin Newsom right now. Which is funny because if you listen to the people on the station that we were on during the week, Gavin Newsom is a Marxist, communist, crazy guy, right?
Yeah,
that's what I hear. But
yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, California had been picked on a long time. And you're hearing stories, too, about people leaving California, going to places like Texas. I don't know how many are like that, but that's the Fox News type of attitude that you're hearing, that they're leaving. They can't stand the cost of living. I mean, granted, the price of gas there is ridiculous. I think in some areas it's like $7 a gallon. But And for the life of me, there's a lot of people. I don't know how they're making it. We had Lynn Montgomery on the show. Lynn she's a great person. She's based in Texas. She heads she's the president of the Transport Workers Union for Southwest, and she handles all of Southwest, the whole country. And she told me that there's flight attendants at Southwest in Los Angeles, take home pay $1,600 a month. Okay, in Los Angeles. How do you? And some of them are living in their cars because of that. But and it's they're playing hardball. All the big carriers have pretty much settled. Delta, American Airlines, United. I just settled, but Southwest is playing hardball. They're working on their computer system. I think they don't want another crash like what happened during the holidays last year.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ed, Flash Ferenc, really appreciate your time. Always enjoy talking to you. America's Workforce, where can they find it?
All right. The best advice I can give you, just go to awfpodcast.com. AWF, like America's Workforce, awfpodcast.com. All the shows are archived there. You can see all of our sponsors, and we're bringing more in. We're bringing in the Brotherhood of Maintenance Way next year as well. So
that's great.
Yeah, we got the Teamsters, we got the UAW, the communication workers, the steel workers. We want to get them all here. We appreciate that. Plus, we got the AFL-CIO.
Yep.
Fred Redmond, I'll tell you, there's one guy. I love that guy. He was on the show on Friday. But if you ever get an opportunity, and I could help you on that, get him on your show, because he's the real deal. He really is the real deal. Great number 2 man in the AFL-CIO. One more thing.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have a second here?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time that you want.
We were talking on Friday. If you go to the AFL-CIO main page, aflcio.org, and this is the perfect timing for this, because our former president said he was going to go to see workers. We all were under the impression that they were going to be UAW workers. No, they weren't. They were non-union. And he said, and he's often said that he supports the workers. He doesn't support the union leaders. So you've heard that so many times. So that kind of prompted the AFL-CIO to come up with Trump's record. And there's a lot of union brothers and sisters that support Trump. I don't know if it's the celebrity. I don't know what it is. That's you have to talk to a psychologist about that. The bottom line is the AFL-CIO set the record straight on Trump's record. Go to the website. It's like 4 pages long. There's a lot of crap that this guy has done over the years, going back when he was building in New York and how he went around the unions and and paid off people. It was ridiculous. But union busters on the NLRB, I mean, 2 of them were clear union busters, rolling back regulations, job protection, safety, OSHA. Check it out. It's really good information, and everybody needs to read that. Okay, I want to leave you on that note.
That's a good note. AFLCIO.org, and it is on their front page, their press release, Donald Trump's catastrophic and devastating anti-labor track record. The thing that I like to bring up the most when I'm on, I do like a guest spot every week on the morning show on this conservative radio station, and the thing that I like to bring up most about Donald Trump is that he appointed a coal executive to the Mine Safety and Health Administration. And
that's right.
Would you believe it? This coal company executive rolled back a proposed rule that Obama was pushing through to try to protect miners from silica, which is responsible for a huge increase in black lung. I believe that you've talked to Kim Kelly about her investigations into that, and it's just, that is responsible. That, probably 6-year delay in this rule being implemented. Hundreds of coal miners have died because of Donald Trump. So, yeah.
Elections matter. Elections matter so much. And it's sad that so many people are consumed by celebrity, or there's just some things about certain people that they gravitate toward. But you have to vote in your best interest. Read about the candidate. And it goes beyond the president. It goes in all races. Read about the candidate, and whatever they're going to say a lot of things. Let's be honest.
Right.
Follow what they do. Right. Follow the laws that they're behind. Actions speak louder than whatever
words. Yeah.
I'm getting all fired up.
There you go.
Words. Actions speak louder than words. But I'm getting fired up here because it just ticks me off that people. I don't know if some of them just don't care. They don't understand the political process. They don't follow what a leader, what a person in a power position can do to you as a worker. Maybe that's the best way to describe this whole thing. But they have to really kind of delve into that. I know people are busy. They got a lot of, they got kids, they got grandkids. They're working 2-3 jobs because of the jobs not being union jobs. But you got to pay attention, and you got to get the right people in office. And when you get the right people in office, good things happen.
There you go. Ed Flash Ferenc, America's Workforce Radio from Ohio. Weekday daily union radio program. Only one in the country. Appreciate your time, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right, folks. Really enjoy that. Definitely awfpodcast.com. Check it out if you haven't. It's a good listen. Always talking to folks from across the country about what's going on in their unions. Really good stuff. We've got a caller on the line. Let's go ahead and bring him on. I think I know who it is. It is.
All right. Give me just a sec, and we'll bring up.
Looks
like infinite content.
Yeah, 267 area code. What is your name? Where are you calling from?
Adam and Jacob, it's infinite content. How are y'all? I'm sorry, Ben. It's Ben. I thought I saw. How are y'all doing today, young men?
Doing good. We played a pre-tape of Adam. That may be what confused you. He pre-taped an interview for us, so we played that.
You all using some trickery and confusion on me. So I'd like to just bring up a story that came out of Philadelphia real quick. someone went and stole like 194 cases of crab legs, and in Philly it was like 73,000. And I would like to let everybody know on the Valley Labor Report that Infinite Content had no hand in the Great Crab Leg Heights of Philadelphia.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Now, I just want to get that out there.
When people call us asking for it, we'll be sure to tell them that.
I didn't have a hand in it. I don't know where to get the crab legs. If I did, I'd be eating some crab cakes right now. I mean, we talk about so many heavy stories on the show. I just figure I'd start off with a bit of levity.
There you go. That sounds good.
Now, did y'all hear the updates on the Baton Rouge Brave Cave story?
The Baton Rouge what?
The Brave Cave. You know where the cops were taking people and effing them up at a black site and abusing them and violating them? Didn't y'all talk about that like last week or the week before?
I don't think so.
Well, to bring up to speed, Baton Rouge had a quote-unquote anti-violence unit that was they were quote-unquote they were taking people off the street and then taking them to a black site that they had, so it was off the books, and like abusing them, beating them off camera, and sexually exposing them. It got exposed, and there's a few cops that have resigned. There's a few cops that have been charged. They shut the site down. The police civilian review board has too many union proxies on it, so they're blocking the police chief's budget in retaliation. It's a whole mess. KBYZ has done some great reporting on it. So if you all have a chance to go, just Google Baton Rouge Brave Cave, and there's a couple of civil lawsuits out for civil rights violations.
Yeah.
I think the only way that you're going to get cutting police budgets is not the answer. The only way that you're going to get these police to act properly is to start paying out lawsuits out of the police pension funds.
Yeah, I think that's definitely that is definitely something that I would be in support of. And I mean, just generally, I think that you got whatever you do with the ultimate budget. I think the dollar amount that the police get seems to me is like less the issue and more about like how much power do they have over people's lives. I mean, I do think that there would be some benefit gained from reallocating some of the funds that are given to police to like social services and stuff like this. But like
absolutely, because
the bottom line is the bottom line is they just feel like they're entitled to servile compliance from anybody that they walk around in front of for no reason.
Now, Adam, do you study? I'm sorry, Jacob. Do you study military history?
No, but
or empire? I just wanted to bring up when you overspend on policing/military. That's usually a key indicator of decline in empire. We're spending way too much on defense and policing. If that money went into public goods, one, we wouldn't need as many police because
or just preventing the crime, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's like a lot of crimes are crimes of desperation. Like if they aren't violent crimes, like when you see people looting or people shoplifting, a lot of times those are crimes of desperation. They aren't. And the only thing that happens, like remember, did I tell you all about that Alabama approved a over $1 billion new jail?
Yeah,
we know all about it. Sadly,
I don't think you've talked about it, but we've seen it. Yeah.
The only thing that happens when you open up new jails is that they're going to fill up the jail.
Yep.
And this is not to increase our capacity either. This is to maintain, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that $1 billion could have went to building public housing, social services, which would have prevented people from being in jail in the first place.
Yep.
And but one good thing is that you see that Brett Favre, the ultimate welfare queen, has to testify, right?
I have not.
We aren't going to take our foot up. We're not taking our foot off his neck, because that bastard stole welfare funds from the poorest people in the poorest state in the nation. Just to remind people, if they've forgotten, because I won't let this one slide at all. He had $5 million of TANF, which is temporary assistance and needy funding from state of Mississippi, get transferred to University of Southern Mississippi to build a damn volleyball court for University of Southern Mississippi while his daughter was going there. And then was like, well, we'll probably be able to know anything about this. He knew what he was doing wrong. That's some real grunt. I will keep grinding him up forever and a day, and I will re-resurrect myself to keep grinding him up, because you don't do that. You're stealing from the people who need it the most. And Mississippi already gatekeeps and just damn near 90% of the TANF applications that people put in.
Yep.
But they did $77 million. It's the largest. It's the largest Medicaid fraud case in Mississippi history. It rivals in my mind what Rick Scott did to Medicare when he was running that fucking company in Florida. And $250 million defrauding government funds for the rich. I'm sorry. I haven't talked to y'all in a couple weeks, so I'm a little mad.
Yeah, no.
So
no. Absolutely. I appreciate that. All very
But I'm
important
going to let
stories.
you go and let other people get on. Solidarity, brothers. Peace.
Hey, solidarity.
Peace.
Thank you for calling in.
Thanks for the call. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. We've got 23 watching. We've got about 40 likes, so people have been liking as they come out. I appreciate that as they come in and out of the stream. Make sure that you like it before you leave the stream today. We got some good conversation. David has joined, co-founder of the Valley Labor Report. Appreciate him tuning in. Fran is a badass indeed. She's been doing some good stuff. She had a really great speech at the beginning of the strike. So definitely would recommend checking that out. So let's another thing about the UAW strike that has been important, and we saw this with the Teamsters at UPS. Actually, we saw Amazon workers, being inspired by the things that the Teamsters won at UPS, and now we are seeing non-union auto workers being inspired by what the UAW is poised to win at the big three automakers. This came out in NBC. The reporter talked to a few non-union auto workers across the South, and they gave their thoughts, and it's really, really heartening. James Bryant, this is from the article, a vehicle inspector at a Nissan plant in Canton, Mississippi, the one that they lost the union election a few years ago, said he and his colleagues discussed the latest strike developments before work and during their breaks, hoping enough teammates will become galvanized to unionize their own facility. I think they're doing the right thing, Bryant, 51, said of the strikers. If they don't, these companies are just going to keep doing whatever it is they want to do. So really, really cool there. And then Fain Fain basically backed up some of these comments that we're seeing, online and from non-union auto workers. Sean Fain said that, quote, the response from auto workers at non-union companies has been overwhelming. Hundreds of workers across the country, from the West to the Midwest, and especially the South, are reaching out to join our movement and join the UAW. And that is huge. And that's how society that will really be able to shift society, is by bringing more people into the labor movement and by bringing more bosses and more companies to heel. They've had free reign for just way too long. But the Bryant at the Nissan plant, he said that a lot of his coworkers, they just freeze up and get scared at the prospect of unionizing. They mentioned that in 2017, the effort to unionize was soundly defeated. They were told if we got a union, this is Bryant, the plant was going to close and move to Mexico and all these different things. We tried, we lost, and we just moved forward. And so hopefully they're able to get this back going again, and there's going to be and they have a different result. And so that would be a very, very big deal. They quoted a non-union auto worker from Hyundai in Alabama. Conbralius Thomas said he and some of his colleagues have been trying to get the UAW down to the Hyundai assembly plant in Montgomery, Alabama, where he has worked for 11 years. He criticized the plant's rules around paid time off and said the company hasn't sufficiently boosted pay for taking on new responsibilities. I wish we were in a position where we could strike right now, said Thomas, who added that he has been involved in UAW organizing amid the union's post-scandal restructuring. So really, as Thomas sees it, in the South, you have a lot of scared people that don't know much about a union because they've been raised to be against a union. But he said the big three strikes make now a great time for the UAW to ramp up organizing, including at non-union plants. The UAW flies under the radar real stealth-like. They do it to the point where it hurts them. If they made more noise, I think it would encourage people. And so I think they're making a lot of noise now, and I'm looking forward to seeing folks like him unionize at their plants. And this is how, this is how we make society better for everybody. And this is how unions make society better for everybody, is they inspire other people to win some of the things that they are getting at their own workplaces. And even where the other people are not able to unionize their own facilities, the non-union companies have to compete with these union companies for workers, and so they have to raise their wages as well. And that's why in areas with higher union density, non-union wages are higher. And so, really good stuff that we're seeing. Appreciated that article from NBC shedding a light on some of this stuff from the non-union auto sector. And you can bet we will be in touch with some folks at the UAW to maybe talk to some of these folks at Hyundai and see what they've got going on down there. I've really appreciated the cooperation of the UAW when we were wanting to talk to some of those folks at the Tuscaloosa ZF manufacturing plant who are on strike right now. They were really cooperative in getting us a guest on to talk about what they've got going on. So obviously we'll keep you up to date as we learn more, but very exciting stuff. There's just on all fronts this UAW strike situation. Very exciting. We've got this clip that I want to make sure that we play.
And we do have another caller on the line as well from a 714.
Okay. Let's go ahead and bring them on. Bring on the 714 area code, and then we'll play this clip, and then we'll probably go ahead and wrap up.
All right. Let me get them up. Caller from 714. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Buenos dias to everybody. My name is Jose Francisco Negrete from Teamster Local 952 and also from Teamster Mobilize. I just want to give a shout out to the UAW guys. Well, let me start off with this. Out here in Southern California, we seem to be a little hotbed of union activity. We have, several strikes happening at once. The Kaiser Permanente, SIU, UHW, they were holding down some strikes out here and throughout California, I think in Arizona too, Nevada, but I could be wrong, so please don't call me on that. But yeah, we had the Kaiser strike. We still got the Medieval Time strike in Buena Park. They get zero coverage. Hopefully I could connect you with one of the guys so he could get the message out and get a little bit more eyeballs, a little bit more ears to their struggle.
I heard about that. Those guys literally take a beating, so they need to be paid decently.
Yeah,
for literally taking a beating.
They have that. We have the Medieval Times. We have the Unite here, the hotel workers, and shame on the Arizona Diamondbacks if they do stay at the JW Marriott LA Live, because that's one of the places that Unite here 11 is picketing. So hopefully they do what Inter Miami did, is they were supposed to stay at one of the hotels that the Unite here 11 were picketing, but then ended up moving to a different hotel, which had no affiliation with Unite here, as in concerns to picketing. And to Aunt 8 with their Aunt 8 is a fulfillment center out there in Moreno Valley. They're still unionizing over there. You know, Amazon will always. We have these boss laws, which you try to unionize, but they never tell you, okay, how many people they have on the payroll, right? And as the workers, so you're always trying to guess. Oh, you know, do we have 30 or whatever amount? What 30 is to spark the election in a workplace, but you know, these corporations, they have the law behind their side, and we don't. So shout out to them, and then shout out to UAW. I've been out there several times. I went out there with my brother Will Pena. We went to the UAW, went to the Stellantis one. Local 230, shout out to them. They have some really cool brothers and sisters. I've had several conversations with them at the times that I've gone out there 3 times, and I've always had, you know, insightful conversations. I learned a lot from just having the conversation and mostly listening to what they have to tell me as somebody trying to understand their plight, trying to understand their struggle. And shout out to local 6645. They're the GM plant. They're in Rancho Cucamonga, which both sites, well, there's a GM site, the Stellantis site, and the Ford site, and they're all within maybe a 10-mile radius around there from each other. So it's pretty cool. I just, unfortunately, I would have hoped that President Fain would have struck Ford, but you know, he made whatever call he made. But it's funny. When I went to the Stellantis one 2 weeks ago with brother Pena, we were talking to them. They were telling us that they extended that Stellantis picket line to a cross dock, and towards it's on the borderline of the city of Riverside, so it's on the Riverside side. So they extended the picket line there, and they had a scab delivery guy pull out a gun on them, you know. And then to top it off, that plan kind of worked. Well, not the gun part, but extending the picket line to the crosstalk, because that crosstalk is shared with Toyota. So because of that, they were able to affect Toyota's operation as well. But because we have these boss laws, Toyota called the sheriffs of Riverside, and they stepped in, and then Toyota eventually sent a letter to the union saying, hey, you know, you keep this up, we're gonna sue you, you know, because you can't affect business, you can't affect commerce in the United States. You just can't, you know.
Right.
So, you know, shout out to them. You know, everybody out here in Southern California, you know, they're holding it down. I tried to go to the SEIU one, the Kaiser strike, but I really didn't get their strategy, how they're doing their picket lines. It seems like they were kind of rotating them, but I'm not exactly sure, because I went yesterday because my refrigerator took a dump, so I had to go buy a new one. So I took the evening off from work, and I went over there because my son had basketball practice. I'm like, I got some time to kill, and I went over there to go, you know, do what we all should be doing, is hitting the nearest picket line and showing our solidarity with them, with any worker that's on strike. So I went over there and I didn't see nothing. So I don't quite understand their strategy when it comes to striking. But yeah, we have a lot of cool things. History will tell us if when it comes to the Teamsters, what kind of president we had. You know, right now it's you have some that think he's militant, others think that, oh, hold on there, he's not that militant, you know, because now we're seeing what could be possible if a strike happens. How long was the big three saying, no, those EV plants, they're non-negotiable, they're non-starters, and look how fast GM caved, you know. So I just wish we would have taken that step to go out on strike. You know, we never did. You know, the contract was ratified by, I think, 87%. it is what it is. I have I have a lot of complaints when it comes to that contract, a lot. But when it comes to his presidency, time will tell, history will tell what kind of president we had in the Teamsters under Sean O'Brien, and let history write the book. But as a rank and file, as a rank and file organizer at Teamster Mobilized, my job is to organize my shop floor, educate my shop floor, but also not just limit myself to my shop floor. Go out there in the community and help in the struggles that the community is struggling. In the UAW, I remember when they had a rally there last week, and the messaging was a very class struggle message, because most of those people at that local 230 Stellantis distribution parts don't live. Most of them don't live in in the area in their city, which in this case is Ontario. They're coming from different places. If you can't work, if you can't live in the city you work in, that's a problem. And that's a problem. Me and my cousin were kind of going back. He's like, "Oh, you want to be a millionaire?" I don't want to be a millionaire, man. I don't, because he knows how my stance is. he knows that I want to end all tiers. I want to bring the wage discrepancy within our, because he's a tractor trailer driver. My cousin is. There's a big old wage discrepancy still in this contract between feeder guys, RPCD, 22 full-time inside people, what we call combos, and then part-timers. There's still a big old wage discrepancy,
right?
And then you replace one tier, which was the 22-4, which that was one of our rally cries. But you replace that tier with a 2-tier poverty system for part-timers, because if you get hired in part-time inside UPS, you start off at 21, and then 12 months later you're at 21.50. So every 12 months you go up 50 cents, and you're not getting the 75 cents raise we're going to get next year. The following year, 75 cents, the dollar, and I think the $1.50 at the end of the contract. Those new hires will not get that wage increase. Their wage increase stays at 50 cents. Then we're talking about AI and automation. For the last 6 years, UPS has been building anything they build when it comes to hubs are all automated hubs.
Right.
And what Carol Tomei said is they want to look at the customer counters and create it. I'm sure they have the technology for the AI. They just want to know if it's going to work, if there's going to be any glitches. So they're probably going to introduce AI into the customer counters. So we'll see what history will tell on that note. But you know what? I just want to say this, because I listened to what you had to say a couple of weeks ago, and as a rank and file, if I decide to run for presidency of my union, that should be my right, and I shouldn't. Nobody should be ostracized or laughed at if they run, because that's like Sean Fain said yesterday towards the end of that UAW update thing he had yesterday, that all these corporations think of the workers as just idiots. Like, we're just dumb. We have no education. We can't understand concepts. We can't understand theory. We can't think beyond this one point, So it should be rank and file should run for office if they choose to do so, and we shouldn't ostracize anybody if they decide to pull that weapon, because we are capable of running a local. We are capable of conducting a strategic ideological fight against these ruling class, against these corporations. We are capable. We just sometimes, when you're an incumbent, who has the upper hand? The incumbent will always have the upper hand, because they already have the mechanisms in place to squash anything. But
Yeah, well, no, I mean, and I saw that comment, and I didn't have time to respond to it about, but I was definitely not laughing at the idea of a rank and filer running for office. I was laughing at the fact that that guy from the Revolutionary Blackout, had zero idea what he was talking about. I mean, clearly he said Will Lehman came close, and I listened to another stream and he said it again. I mean, he just says, like, these people have zero grounding in, what they're talking about. And so it is like, it's funny if you think that Will Lehman came close, because he didn't. Like, objectively, he didn't, he didn't have a base of support, and he didn't get a lot of votes. And, I would say that, I would say it probably borders on inappropriate to run for president of the International Union when you've got, like, hasn't he only been working there like 3 or 4 years? I mean, like, become a steward, like, save somebody's job, and then, do a little bit of that kind of work, but, I mean, people are well within their right to do whatever they want, and he had, is within his right to run for international president, and he did, and that's fine. I've got a lot of problems with the people that he was a front for. I mean, it wasn't like he had some organic campaign. He was a front for the World Socialist website, which is a, like, anti-union.
I have my problems with WSWS. I mean,
they told people in my state in Alabama to vote.
I have several issues with them.
Yeah.
But I think there is a place for them. But like, there's a place for TVLR. There's a place for the Rick Smith show. There's a place for all of it, because we're in labor, and the most fundamental thing for us is democracy. Because we've seen it throughout history. All these business unionists and these top-down structures just try to kill any movement towards democracy. I have my issues with TDU. I have a lot of issues with TDU. But back in the day, they had to go through a bunch of stuff,
right,
just to bring more democracy inside the union. Because why? Democracy is no ally to anybody in positions of power. Because once you start stripping away that power and giving it to the workers, now the workers have more power. That's why, and some of these bylaws that we have in the Teamsters, they're undemocratic. The principal officers have so much power. They could fire stewards whenever they want, just because the steward has questions or doesn't follow what a steward does the best thing for the membership. They might just, like, they might have asked a lot of questions. They might cause some blowback with whoever's in power. But you have these bylaws that there's no protection for stewards. And then how we only know if they get a raise through the LM2s. Right. Why can't you have wording in the bylaws that say, look, at the general membership meeting, we're going to say how much we're going to give a raise to, for the business agents, for the executive board, for the staff, whatever, right? And then at the next meeting, let the membership decide. If you're doing a good job, the membership's not going to have a problem with it. But if you ain't doing a good job, then you're going to have a lot of members be like, hey, wait. Whatever you're selling is not what I'm seeing out here. I'm not seeing my business agent as much as you guys are saying that they're coming around the barn. So these bylaws, they need to be democratized. And then regardless if you've been there 3 years now, should you know the lay of the land when it comes to your union? Yeah, you should. Because once you understand the lay of the land, then you want to want to change it, and only for the betterment. It's only for the betterment of the membership. And then, because once you have a more stronger union, we could go out in these fights. We still have Amazon out there, and I don't know what's happening with Amazon. I just see extended picket lines, which is good because you're disrupting commerce. But are we going inside? What do we know about these sortation centers? How many members are in there? Are they willing to organize?
Right.
You know, are they ready to organize? Are they ready to take the next step? And then are you going to be honest with them? Tell them, look, if you do organize, you're going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no way around it. You're going to get fired. But we have things in place to help you. What are we doing? I don't understand. You know, it's not if we're finding out if they're calling for a national conference. I think we had a conference in Vegas in April when it came to Amazon, but it was during the middle of the week. You know, so I work as an instructional assistant in my morning job, so to get time off is virtually impossible. You know, they put up a fight when peak comes around at UPS, but we need to. I just wish there was more of an open dialogue when it comes to Amazon, and we just. I could see the democratization in places. I see the UAW guys, and when I talk to them, there's a sense of pride that's being that they reconnected with, because they're all fighting. You know, they're all on strike. They're only getting $500 a week, so it's not if they're, you know, that's a fraction of their paycheck. But they understand their strike discipline.
Right.
You know. We were never given. I wish the Teamsters, UPS Teamsters, were given a chance to be strike disciplined. But all I heard was, you don't have a mortgage to pay, you don't have this, you don't have that. But you knew, or you should have known, that a strike would have been possible a year before the strike.
Right.
And I was telling the guys at my hub, like, hey, the part-timers, like, hey. And my shift, like, hey, you need to see strike where you need to start saving as much as you can. You could save 5 here, 20 there, whatever you can, just in case. You know, but I don't think we were strike ready. We still have apathy. And then some of these, I'm not going to say the other term, but some of these position holders that we have in the union, you know, just they want to keep the membership, then the rank and file apathetic, and just in the self-interest kind of mode. It's like, no, it doesn't. I don't need it to affect me, so I'm voting no. You know, or yes, or whatever it may be. You know, my faith is in democracy. My faith is still it's always going to be in the rank and file. That's why tomorrow we're going to go visit the UAW guys again. I love having conversations with them. They found the bench. They call it the solidarity bench. And, you know, you write down your local. It's pretty cool, and they're very, very friendly when I go over there. They've always been a class act, you know. So as well as the medieval times, I still haven't hit the Unite Here 11 strike line. I got to do that, you know. Oh, and they still have the SAG-AFTRA on strike too. So it's like Drake said, what a time to be alive. But I always thank you for giving me a platform to talk. We might not see eye to eye, but yeah, you know what? That's okay, because our hearts are in the right place. Our hearts is for the working class. It's for the betterment of them. Yeah. And as long as we keep that in our hearts and in our vision, any disagreements, hey, it's just agreements. It's water under the bridge. So we know what we need to move on to, and we have a greater enemy in our midst, and that's the ruling class. That's these corporations. That's these sellout politicians. And both sides of the duopoly, you know.
Yep. Absolutely. Appreciate the call, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Yep.
Thanks for calling.
Yep. I agree with a lot of that you know, I mean, there are some things that we disagree on. Like I've said before, I prefer to make wide latitude for disagreement, you know, within the labor movement. I want to be comradely about disagreements, and I'm happy to be comradely with disagreements, you know, even with people, or not. I mean, not even Jose and I are not that far apart on most issues, but I would draw a line at the World Socialist website. I think that they're a different beast. I think that it's I think that when you start talking about people should revoke their union or, should resign from their union. People should vote no in an Amazon union election with RWDSU. When you're like slandering people who are, who work for unions or who, are rank and file, working. I'm a bargaining unit employee at my job. And they've gone on talking about me being a union bureaucrat and implying that I make a lot of money from the union, and I don't make any money from the union. I'm almost never, in fact, reimbursed for lost wages when I do union work. I think they're a different beast, but happy to agree to disagree about them, but not with them. I do not consider them part of the same movement. I'm happy to agree to disagree with people who do, but I have a different opinion. I have a much different opinion of them. All right, so let's wrap up with this clip here about this billionaire guy. And so, one of the things that and this is, Flash was talking about the something that the rich will try to do to divide us. They'll try to divide working folks who make a little bit more money from working folks who make a little bit less money. And so part of that is they just try to do this envy thing, and so look at them. They've got a little bit more money than you, but don't look at me. I've got like hundreds of times more than you, right? So look at them, don't look at me. And this inflation conversation is another part of that, because inflation has been on people's minds, in particular in the last 2 or 3 years, because of how high it's gotten. At one point I think it got up to like 12%. Some people think that the estimates are even low. And so it got up to, at least 10% at one point. And that is huge. You're talking about 10%. If you're not getting a raise, that's a 10% pay cut. People notice a 10% pay cut. That's a big deal. And so using the specter of inflation and just kind of common sense understanding of how things work, they're trying to fearmonger people about the UAW. They're trying to make you think, if the UAW gets what they want, your cars are going to be more expensive, and look at how expensive they are already, so therefore you should fight against the UAW instead of the companies. You should be on the side of the companies, actually, against the UAW.
Ignore my bags of money.
Ignore all of my bags of money. Look at the UAW workers.
Unless you're a shareholder, then I'm going to brag about my bags of money.
So that's what they're trying to do, and that's what this billionaire did in this clip. Let's play that.
All right, here we go.
The UAW is on strike. They're asking for 40% wage increases. The unions, it's funny because the Democrats, what's wrong with the Biden administration? Why is he so unpopular? It's inflation. That's what people say. It's the economy, dummy. It's the economy. People have less in their pocket. But now he's backing the unions who are forcing wages up, which is creating the inflation he has to kill. The UAW.
Yeah.
Wages too high. Wages too high.
Yeah, actually, there has been analysis on inflation to now that has shown that it very much has not gone to increased workers' wages. That's just factually inaccurate. Most of it has gone 50% of the increase in cost of goods. 50% has gone just to shareholders, just to profits. So the other 50% has gone to things that have legitimately increased the price, like supply chain issues or paying people more. But the paying people more is only like 20% of the whole thing. And so in that 50%, a lot of it is rising material costs and supply chain issues. But a whole half of it, 50%, has just gone to increased profits and into shareholders' pockets. And so the idea that workers' wages have contributed to the inflation that we've seen or will contribute to inflation in the future is just no bearing in reality. And I wanted to play that clip because I saw something after that clip that was just really baffling to me. It was an analysis by an unlikely ally saying that, no, this is really fucking stupid what you're saying. And the the people who said that is Goldman Sachs. So
wild.
So if Goldman Sachs is coming and saying, okay, look, I mean, the workers there, I mean, it's
called
fine.
Goldman Sachs, guys.
It's like, they're fine. They can have a little bit of money. It's not really going to affect anything. It's not a big deal. If they get 40% raises, not a big deal. Quote from the white paper that they released. Those big wage hikes the unions are demanding and some are getting are unlikely to set inflation soaring again. So yeah, just slaps down that notion that, oh yeah, it's workers that are causing inflation instead of the people who are setting the prices. Workers don't set the prices, bosses set the prices, and the people who are taking 50% of that and just stuffing it in their pocket, not for doing anything, not for laboring any harder, just for owning.
It's always some broke dude's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you
some
poor?
Random broke guy.
Why are you poor? It's because of this other poor person and maybe an immigrant. That's why you're poor. So don't fall for it, folks. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's going to be it for us today. TVLR.fm/donate if you want to make a one-time or monthly recurring contribution to the show. TVLR.fm/store.
Get that new shirt. Get that new
shirt. If you want to get the new shirt. And Adam is going to be talking to y'all on Thursday morning with a new episode of Shop Talk. And I will see you again next week.
See y'all then.